mean, it's only a few days till Christmas, so why not throw in a little Christmas music into the mix here? Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Tuesday along with Hunter Brody here on 97.3 ESPN. Another busy show packed for you on a Tuesday. Interesting Monday Night Football game, which I complained about thoroughly on Twitter last night. That was embarrassing, that game last night. It was pathetic.
What was it? What was pathetic about it?
The Steelers.
Okay.
I tweeted out, I think Minkah Fitzpatrick was the only person trying to win last night.
See, you go pathetic with the Steelers, which is very true. But I think, damn, how about that Bengals? Playing with some fight, playing with some attitude out there.
I believe that when it was Brandon Allen out there. But as soon as you go to Ryan Finley, I was like, all right.
I loved it. AFC North battle. It gave you that intensity.
There were more Steeler fans in the building last night than Bengal fans, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, but that doesn't surprise anyone.
See the yellow towels waving around at the beginning of the game. By the way, did you enjoy the Muppets intro from Monday Night Football?
No. I was out.
I fell flat, too. And I used to be I'm a Muppets guy.
Oh, you're a Muppetsman.
I'm a Muppetsman, yeah. But it fell flat. It didn't have the juice.
I would agree with you.
My favorite Christmas movie is A Muppet's Christmas Carol, by the way.
Is that what you go with?
That's my favorite.
I'm simple. I go Elf.
Elf doesn't really do much for me.
No? I'm not surprised because you're anti what other people like. You won't go down that road. And because Elf is so standard, you're out.
It's not that it's standard. It's just that I feel like it's the trendy thing everybody runs to now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's been around for a while. At some point, you could say the same about A Christmas Story. All of it. They've all been around
for
forever.
Example, I think I enjoy and I think it's funnier Jingle All the Way more than Elf.
I can't agree with that.
I know you can't.
But I'm not a moviesman. Therefore, my philosophy on movies can be so flawed.
No, that's true. Now, I feel like you're also, you come off as maybe a guy who enjoys Will Ferrell movies, though.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Right, so that kind of is up your alley.
Yeah, he's hysterical.
Right, but I like him in other movies more, for me at least.
Okay, I don't.
Talladega Nights.
Yeah, he's got great
Step
films.
Brothers.
Oh, A+.
What was it with him and Mark Wahlberg when they were the cops? The Other Guys.
The Other Guys.
That was hilarious.
Yes.
But Elf was like,
All right.
It didn't strike the same chord for me.
Is that how you feel about Jalen Hurts?
No, I love Jalen Hurts. I'm all on board with Jalen Hurts. In fact, the more I watch Jalen Hurts, the more ticked off I get at Carson Wentz. And the more ticked off I get at Carson Wentz, I'm watching that game last night. I'm like, daggone it, that could have been us.
Now, I will say, I feel I'm getting a bit attacked by the people, and here's why. I love everything that I've seen out of Jalen Hurts. You're not a football fan or you're not smart about the game if you've watched the last two outings and didn't think, hold on a second, this is very entertaining and there is something here. But I feel I need more time. I need more time than 2 games. I need more time than 4 games. And I'm getting blasted because I'm not willing to fully commit to Jalen Hurts at this very moment. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Is it crazy for me to sit here and say, look, I just need more time. I'm not ready to go all in on this guy, but some people are coming after me.
I don't think it's crazy, but I think it's... All right, so let me ask you this as a follow-up to that. Do I think it's crazy? No, but I need a little more context, okay? If you're going to say you're not all in on Hurts, are you at least out on Wentz?
No, I'm not out on Wentz. I think it would be crazy to be out on Wentz.
Why?
Well, I mean, we've seen him be successful, and we are
not this year.
Correct, and we are talking about one of the most historic drops ever. Do I think the guy forgot how to play football fully and can never play football again? No, I think it would be wild to sit here and say Wentz can never play football again. To me, that would be crazy. So, no, I'm not out on Carson Wentz, but I love what Jalen Hurts has done. I just need to see it consistently. I brought this up yesterday. Travis Fulgham, after the 4th week, after he gets 100-plus yards again, and he's getting all these receptions, if I told you right there on the spot, you have to sign this guy to a contract extension, everyone would be like, yeah, absolutely, go out and get him, sign him, he's the best. And now you see what he is. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Jalen Hurts, but it's possible. It's possible that it doesn't, but it's possible that it does.
See, I agree with you that Wentz is salvageable, rebuildable, whatever you want to call it. I just don't think it's here in Philadelphia.
And that could be very possible.
And that's why I'm out on him, because I think that he still doesn't get it. I think there's still a disconnect with reality when it comes to him. Because, as I mentioned last night on Game Night, if you go back and reread what Schefter's report was, the actual verbiage, and you listen to what Rob Maaddi said, those reports don't conflict. They only emphasize, to me, part of the problem with Wentz. And that is, he doesn't see why he's not starting. He doesn't see why this is a problem here in Philadelphia. And the fact that he doesn't see and understand that, Carson, you opened the door for you to be benched. And the fact that he is not happy with not starting, and he's unhappy with the situation, as Rob Maaddi's words were, or as Schefter's words, he doesn't want to be a backup, right? But you put yourself in this situation. So the fact that you don't understand why you are in this situation is really concerning to me.
See, I don't agree that he doesn't see this. There's no way that he has seen what has happened through the first, let's say, 12 weeks of the season, and he doesn't realize that he played bad football to get benched. Like, there's just no way in hell that Wentz is sitting there going, I didn't play bad. You know, like, there's just no way that that's possible.
So how is it? Why is there a disconnect then?
There is clearly a disconnect, and there could be a lot of reasons why. There is obviously something that goes on between him and Doug Peterson that isn't flowing, because Doug has a lot of success with other quarterbacks other than Carson Wentz, although there was a season where they won a Super Bowl, and he was a big part of it, so they did mesh at some point. And yes, Frank Reich was a part of the coaching staff at that time. But I can't imagine a guy playing that type of football, seeing the stats, seeing what was going on, and he has no clue that he played that pathetic. I mean, seriously, there's just no way for me to do it. And when I look at these reports and I hear what's going on, Adam Schefter and Rob Maaddi, and they both do obviously a fantastic job, I almost feel like this is a non-story. So Carson Wentz is unhappy being a backup. Let me know of an NFL quarterback that's happy being a backup who has the talent to be a starter. Sure, there's some that are willing to play that backup role because they understand where they fit in the league. Doug Peterson, I'm sure, was okay with playing a backup role. But plenty of these quarterbacks in the league that have starter mentalities are not happy to be backups. So I didn't even really see it as a story. It just, because it is what it is, people will stretch it.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig. The text board is open at 609-403-0973. I want to remind you, coming up on the Sports Patch, we will dive deep into the Eagles situation. Geoff Mosher joins us on a Tuesday for Football at 4. By the way, the final Football at 4 for the week. How about that?
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
It's crazy how this schedule lays out.
Well, it's Christmas week. Does it feel that way?
It's starting to. I feel the build. You know what I mean?
I made a big Christmas mistake this morning, and I'll tell you about it a little bit later on in the show.
That's coming up in 45 minutes.
Yeah, I'm upset with myself. Big time.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Also, Julian Edlow, DraftKings NBA analyst. We got the NBA opening tonight. You hear Lakers Clippers tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Also, Jeff Nadu, Big Man on Basketball Podcast, Big Man on Campus, Barstool Sports. I'm sure he's got some opinions about the NBA season starting tonight. Maybe he's got a pick or two for us. Maybe some perspectives on stuff. Because I was listening to I'm kind of like ramping up, I should say, my basketball, because I was in a fantasy basketball draft last night.
So was I.
So now the funny part is I was asked to be in your league, but it ended up that your league was drafted at the same time as my league.
You got to go double if you really were committed.
Well, here's the thing. I wasn't given that option.
Okay.
Well, once I said I have another league at 9 o'clock, it wasn't said to me, like, for example, was your league ESPN or Yahoo Sports?
Now, I don't know who to put the blame on. Do I put the blame on the individual that you were communicating with, or do I put the blame on you for not saying, well, hold on a second. Is it ESPN? Is it CBS? Because you could have done the same thing now, Josh.
I say it's both.
Okay, so it's a mutual
It's a mutual
mistake.
fail.
Okay.
It's a fail by me and others involved.
I can agree with that statement. I just don't want you to think that you're off the hook. You are part of the problem.
But I didn't think of it till later.
Okay, that's all. I just want to
because
put that out there.
Because I realized that I'm at the gym and I'm sitting there doing this fantasy basketball draft, and I'm like, I could have been doing 2 drafts at one time.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not that hyper committed to this draft. I ended up with both Bogdanoviches. How about that?
Yeah, I saw your tweet last night. I'm pretty stoked, I'm not going to lie, for the Brooklyn Nets tonight. I was looking at the schedule, looking at what's going on this week, and I saw the action, and I'm thinking, damn, I can't wait for this. I'm actually super excited for the show. Not for the show to be over. I love doing this every day. But when the show is over.
You want to get away from me.
No, of course not. I'm super excited to be here. You kidding me? When I leave here, though, I get to go home, sit on the couch with the dog, relax, and watch a little Kevin Durant come back from the Achilles. Like, I'm stoked for that. You?
I am intrigued.
Intrigued is the word.
I'm intrigued because I want to know what this Durant-Kyrie experiment is going to look like. Because Durant, when he's healthy, no one can argue he's one of the 3 best players in the league, right? I think we all can agree on that. But what is Kyrie at this point? I don't know what he is. I mean, he's had a couple of injuries in the last few years. That whole one and done in Boston. The Nets, all this weird stuff with him off the court. He's throwing sage on the court for a preseason game. Like, I don't know what Kyrie is at this point. So I want to know, can this marriage work? Because I'm starting to wonder, all these Harden rumors, right? Harden and Durant played with each other before. And they're pretty cool. They're buds, right? Is there a possibility that the Harden deal that happens is Harden for Kyrie? Because maybe at some point the Durant and the Kyrie relationship goes south, and the Nets got to choose between the two of them. And I feel pretty comfortable saying the Nets will probably choose Durant over Kyrie if they have forced to choose.
That would be crazy. I never really thought that Kyrie would be in the deal when you started saying it. I'm thinking, what do they have? What do the Brooklyn Nets really have to package things together? I would have never imagined it would be Kyrie, although, yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that Durant and Harden would be more explosive than Kyrie and Kevin Durant.
Because the other thing with Harden, really quick.
Yeah.
And people know I used to be a Harden hater, and I've softened that position, even though some people don't think I have. But I think Harden is a better impact player in the league than Kyrie any night of the week.
I would agree with you.
I don't think Kyrie has the dynamics of Harden, because Harden does one thing that Kyrie can never do. Kyrie may have the best handles in the league, arguably, but Kyrie doesn't have just the cold blood in his veins.
Well, some would say he did when he hit that shot in Game 7, 2016.
Yeah, but that was then. This is now. I think something's happened to Kyrie since he won that ring. I don't know if he's had some weird personal stuff going on, or maybe
he thought he was the man. Well, you knew he mentioned it, right? Like, I want to have my own team. And guess what? It's different when you're playing with LeBron and being the Robin, to the Batman.
It's also different when you're playing with Durant.
For sure.
So I want to know what this experiment looks like. That's why I'm calling it an experiment, because I can't tell after one game. I got to compile all the games together. I want to know from December 22nd to March 22nd, what does Kyrie-Durant relationship look like? Is it like a happy Instagram story, or is it like a tumultuous Facebook post?
I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, because every year people put expectations on some teams. Last year was the Sixers.
So it's a Twitter subtweet.
Yeah, maybe we're going down that road. Last year it was the Sixers. The year before it was the Boston Celtics. There's always a team that gets all the media attention before because look at the stars. And it never really flows that way. And some are already giving the Brooklyn Nets an opportunity to win the East. They're the best. How do you get past Durant? And their theory isn't wrong. I'm with you. A healthy Durant, and if Kyrie and him gel, it can be scary. But to just assume it's going to be scary, I'm not there. I think that there will be some bumps and bruises along the way. Sure, there'll be a playoff team and they'll make it in the Eastern Conference, but are they going to be the 1 seed, the 2 seed, like people think they're automatically going to be? Who knows? Maybe they're a 4 seed and a 5 seed and they don't fit as well, but they still win some basketball games. So I'm with you. But you mentioned James Harden. Did you hear the story today?
They chucked a basketball at a teammate at practice?
Yeah, I saw the report on The Athletic.
What is that?
But wow. I don't know. Are teams going to be willing to go after this guy at this point? Will that rub teams the wrong way to the point thinking, maybe we got to stay away?
Well, you saw the report that came out late last night that the Heat are they're out.
Yep.
They're done. And I have to wonder, did that story maybe factor in?
Does James Harden not realize that the more mess that he makes, it's harder for teams to even want him, even though he's making it hard on the organization, which I'm sure that's his plan. Let's make it hard on them because I don't want to be here. It's ruining what you want as well, which is getting out of town.
Well, it's a little like the Carson Wentz situation. Does Carson Wentz realize what he's doing, how much it's affecting the situation?
Well, here's the difference. He's not throwing footballs at people's heads. And I don't think Carson Wentz, whoever leaked the story, him saying that I'm unhappy and I don't want to be a backup quarterback, I honestly see zero issues with that statement.
No, it's not earth-shattering. It's not like some hyper-breaking news. What is again, to me, is that there's a disconnect that I'm unhappy with the situation. But Carson, you created the pathway to this situation.
I think he's aware of that, though.
But is he?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you sure?
Yes. How can you play that poorly and just not know that you were playing bad football?
Because you don't adjust at all.
Well, I mean, that's...
Did he make any adjustments this year?
I think that goes way deeper than just did Carson Wentz make adjustments. I mean, there's a lot in play that we've been discussing for weeks now of head coach, quarterback coach, this and that. Like, there's a lot that plays a role in him just making adjustments.
Sure, but again, quarterback coach. Press Taylor and him are supposedly good friends, right? Well, what if Press Taylor is telling him everything's fine?
Yeah, that's a what if.
Maybe
what
part
if
of the reason why Wentz blew up at him on the sideline was because Press Taylor is telling him XYZ. Carson's like, dude, you keep telling me it's XYZ, but it's ABC. You're messing with my head right now. Like,
okay, so whose fault would that be at that point, if I may
it's both
ask?
of their faults.
Okay.
Because it's Press Taylor's fault for giving Wentz bad information, and who knows who else he's giving bad information to, because he wasn't even Doug Peterson's hire. He was a Chip Kelly hire, right? And then Carson for being too trustworthy. And listen, I mentioned this on Game Night last night. I think there's a level of naivete when it comes to Wentz because of his background in North Dakota and his upbringing, and he's not really used to the real world. When he came to Philadelphia, it was like a culture shock for him, right? So I have to wonder, are there elements to Wentz's personality and his background that has maybe turned him into this guy who doesn't really get it on some level?
Sure, I think that is very fair. To say that he's coming into a new area, a new intensity, different media market, and how we are here, he needs to adapt and operate in a different way. I do think that there's something to be said about maybe the way that he relates to the teammates and all, but for him to, I can't go as deep as saying that he's unaware that he played bad football. He's unaware what he did to put himself in this spot. I just feel any human being with the right mind can properly see I did not play well enough. Maybe he doesn't feel that it was all his fault, and he might have the right idea. I mean, you know how I feel. I don't think it's all his fault. Your offense doesn't score 3 points every single half, and it's on one person. I can't do that.
No,
There's a
and
lot
listen,
in play.
I don't disagree with that. But at some point, when I heard Hurts come out after the Cardinals game and basically start laying out, like, I got to do better at this. I should have done that. I've never heard Wentz do that this year.
Yeah, but,
all I hear Wentz is say, I got to do a better job.
But that's what he's been saying
better
for 5 years. So
right, but I'm done with it. I'm over it.
Well, this is the thing. Carson Wentz and everyone does media differently, right? Everyone has their own personality when it comes to stepping up to the mic.
That's true.
Carson Wentz's is, I got to do a better job. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. That's just what his media presence is. And I think when he first got to Philly, they probably drilled that into him. Because we talk about how much of a culture shock that is. I bet you they sat him down and said, Carson, this is different. You gotta answer the questions the way we're about to tell you to do it, or you're going to get shredded. So him saying that now, he said the same thing in his first year, the same thing in the second year, same thing in the third year. That just tells me that's his media identity. That's his media personality.
But if that's the case, then, as you just laid out, then it's even harder for me to read the Wentz situation because I don't know which version of Wentz is real.
Well, you could say the same thing about the head coach. You could say the same thing about a lot of guys in sports when it comes to media press conferences.
Sure, but I'm just saying that for me, I'm trying to read the Wentz situation the best I can with the information I got. So are you. So is the audience. So is Geoff Mosher and Adam Kaplan and Rob Motti and Andrew DiCecco and everyone who's covering the team, right? We're trying to read the information with the information we're given. And if the information we're being given is not 100% accurate, then what do we do?
Oh, sure. I say that every single time Doug Peterson ever speaks. I have no clue what to do with the information that Doug Peterson gives us because it's all garbage. But I feel the same way from Carson Wentz. I agree with you, but that's throughout the entire organization for the most part. Doug spits out garbage every single time his mouth opens. What do we do with that info?
There's really only one person I trust there are two people. There's two people I trust three. I'm going to make it
okay,
three.
Well, 4. Here we go. 5, 6, 7.
Well, I started going through the head count. So, here's the three people I trust when they open their mouth to the media. Jason Kelsey, Jim Schwartz, Deuce Staley. I can't speak for anybody else.
I think that's fine. That's a fine list.
And I'll add Jalen Hurts to it just because I've heard him now twice. So I guess he's on the list, but he doesn't have enough of a track record.
How about Dave Phipp?
I think I've only paid attention to about 5 press conferences of Dave Phipp.
I wanted to hear what he had to say after last game, so,
He seems like a nice guy. I mean, I'm not going to hate on him or anything.
The special teams is pretty brutal.
I got to say, he's got a very strong hair game. His hair part is very, very in place.
You and the hair today. Now, off the air, we were talking about some things, and you started throwing Steph Curry's hair at me, Matisse Thybulle. So I'm thinking, what's going on today? Josh, why hair?
Well, the Steph Curry thing was brought up to me last week originally. And then someone else brought it up to me again last night. And I'm like, I didn't know the Steph Curry cornrows thing was a thing, but I guess it is.
Are you a fan?
No.
I am not a fan. I'm also not a fan of Matisse's.
But at least Matisse has more hair.
I like the look. I don't like the look on them.
Right.
Yeah, I think the look is very solid.
I feel like Steph it's forced. I feel like he doesn't have enough hair to really do that. So it feels like it's not enough hair to make it a full row. Because if you notice, it only goes the back of the crown of the head.
It needs to go longer.
It needs to be longer if you're gonna do that. It feels almost like his wife was it'd be cute if you did your hair like this, and he was like, sure, honey.
Well, what if one day your wife says the same thing about your hair? Are you gonna do what she says?
I'll give it a try.
Okay, well then I guess you can't knock the man, because if that's the case, he's doing the same thing you would do.
We're gonna find out tonight. Is the cornrow still there, or did he move on?
I think they're still gonna be there. If I had to guess,
then that's a problem. You try something for a little bit, and then you're like, you know what, honey, I love you, but it's not for me.
Now, just to play the other side, I don't know how easy it is to switch once you braid them to that degree.
Yeah, I'm not a cosmetologist, so I can't tell you I'm an expert on hair, but from what I understand of being around a lot of people who used to do that, from what I understand, you could take that off after a couple of days. A couple of days later, you just undo it.
Yeah, well, Matisse needs something new, because if he doesn't change what he was doing,
he's going to even get playing time tomorrow night.
Come on.
Lose
some minutes. Yeah, it's a little disappointing to see that, but I guess it's not. Here's why. The alternative is you got a kid in the first round who seems to have a skill set that's going to take over. Well, guess what? You keep grooming Tyrese Maxey, and you could possibly have a starter one of these days.
That's true. And you know what else? The other thing with the Sixers is you got to admit they got real legitimate depth. And I think the depth on certain teams is going to play a huge role this season. And we'll get into that with Julian Edlow coming up in a few minutes. But you look at teams like the Celtics or a team like the Nets or a team like the Clippers now. They all got a little thin on the bench. They used to be really deep, right? Now all of a sudden that depth is no longer there, and you got to wonder if someone goes on a COVID list, if someone gets injured, if maybe it's a back-to-back and somebody's a little gassed. Do you have the firepower coming off the bench to fill those voids? And for those three teams, for example, I'm not sure that they do, and I think that's going to have a huge impact on this season where it'll be helpful for the Sixers, but it'll hurt some of these other teams.
I do think they definitely have depth. The one thing that scares me, though, and this is something I've been very consistent with Furkan Korkmaz, because after Shake Milton, it seems like he's one of the next ones off the bench, and Doc Rivers really loves what he brings to the table from stretching out the floor. And I think that he obviously developed the three-point shooting, though now he's closer to that 40% range instead of the 32% range, and that's significant. I just don't think the guy works in postseason basketball. So I'm afraid that in regular season hoops, this guy's your seventh man. He's your second guy off the bench. But when you talk about playoff ball, he's not going to be able to be a factor because he just gets destroyed when the game slows down. So I don't know what to do with that, because in regular season, you do have a deep bench. You do have 10 guys that you can throw out there, but you're almost preparing for Furkan to be the guy in postseason off the bench, and I'm not committed to that role for him, which means what do you do all regular season long? Use this guy. That's what regular season's for. Build yourself for the playoffs. So you're going to head into this with this guy being your seventh man, and I don't believe that he works when it matters? I don't know. It concerns me a bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of out on Furkan, just in general.
I agree, and he's legit on this team as if he's coming off the bench after Shake Milton.
Right.
So that's a significant role.
And also a role because of the fact that your guard situation, while it's a lot better than it was last year, listen, if you're starting Seth Curry and Danny Green out there with the other three guys, well, who else is coming off the bench? Because you just mentioned if Thybulle's not getting playing time, we know Shake's the first guy coming off. well, Furkan kind of has to slide into that role a little bit unless Tyrese Maxey can steal minutes from him, which I think the majority of Sixer fans would hope for right now because of how well he looked in those 2 preseason games.
He definitely needs more time to do that, but I see a skill set that can grow into that. So you're right. Maybe we're talking game 50 of the regular season, and your 2 guys off the bench first is Shake and Tyrese Maxey, and then it would be Dwight Howard, and then that pushes Furkan back more. So there is time for things to change, obviously, as Doc Rivers gets his hands on the team. But the Furkan experiment for me, I'm not bought into it. So when I see him get these serious minutes, I just wonder, what does this mean for the long term of this team for this specific season? I feel you're kind of wasting a spot with the guy who won't work when you need him to work.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We get your text a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973. Our hour being brought to you by Dorothy Gale Roofing. There's no place like your home, and if you have a leak or need a new roof, call Dorothy Gale Roofing at 877-97-KEVIN. That's 877-97-KEVIN, or visit them online at DorothyGaleRoofing.com. We'll talk more NBA coming up next. Julian Edlow, the NBA season opens tonight. What can we expect? Next, here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Coming up tonight on 97.3 ESPN, Lakers versus Clippers. Get all the action right here on your home for Sixers basketball and the NBA Finals. 97.3 ESPN. We'll get more into the open of the NBA season right now. We got Julian Edlow from DraftKings joining us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, Hunter.
Listen to this deal, Josh. It's incredible. For the holidays, Hoops fans are being gifted the return of NBA action in its 75th season. To ring in the new year of basketball, DraftKings is offering a full week of daily fantasy millionaire contests along with a plus 75 point spread boost on any opening night team. Fans can head over to DraftKings.com or download the app to learn more.
To get more into the open of the NBA season, it's all going down tonight and tomorrow night. Julian Edlow, DraftKings NBA analyst, joins us right now. Julian, how you doing on this Tuesday?
I'm doing great, guys. I actually have the Lakers plus 75 tonight, so I'm hoping that one plays out to get me my bonus cash on DK Sportsbook.
I got that bet in already too. I thought that was the easiest one because let's be realistic. I don't really know what to think of the Warriors Nets game, although I don't think anybody's going to lose by 75. But I do feel like coming into this season that the Lakers are not just the defending champions. One could argue they might be the most improved team from last year to this season.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The short turnaround, it's easy to kind of think, will LeBron, will AD maybe take a little bit of time off, a little bit of time to get into the season. Both looked great in preseason games. That last one against the Suns, Anthony Davis was in midseason form. LeBron played very well. And then you look at the depth. Schroeder and Harrell were like the 2 favorites for sixth man. And they had both of those guys without losing much. You lose Danny Green, I guess, but you have Gasol in the mix as well. It was a championship caliber team that didn't have much trouble winning it last year, albeit in unique circumstances, and they only get deeper. This bench is really going to help when LeBron, AD take a night off potentially. I think this team is going to steamroll once again through the regular season.
Yeah, right now they are definitely the favorite to win the championship at plus 275 on DraftKings Sportsbook. So a fun hypothetical that's being thrown around today. I want to get your thoughts. The Lakers to win the title or the field?
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. I mean, what is, I guess the field is then like maybe minus 300 or whatever if you're offering that up. You can never take one team against the field unless we're going back to some of those Warriors teams that were right about even money to win it all. Anything can happen. We know how Anthony Davis, LeBron doesn't get hurt. He's a robot, but Anthony Davis has gotten hurt in his career, and that's something that would obviously derail those odds. So just the value better in me says that you have to take the field there, but it's a pretty wide margin. I mean, the Clippers and Bucks at plus 550 are the 2 next teams there. So last year was one of the more competitive fields we had in terms of odds. And then when we saw how dominant the Lakers were and what they've added this offseason, they deserve to be a pretty significant favorite.
Now, it's been suggested by some, Julian, that the Lakers, because LeBron has a history of starting slow and it was a shortened off season, and because they have so much depth, that we might see LeBron, maybe back off the pedal a little bit at the beginning of the season. So there's a possibility that if you're someone who jumps on do the DraftKings Sportsbook and you see the Lakers over or under 66.5% win percentage, that plus 100 might look really good for you on the under, because there's a possibility that they might start out slow and they might not actually get the projected win total.
I think LeBron can start off slow, and the team might not necessarily start off slow. He's still going to be. He looked good in preseason, and if he's giving them that much in preseason, he's going to be giving you something in the regular season. So I don't think he has nothing to prove. There's no reason that he has to play 35, 40 minutes and go balls to the wall every night. But it doesn't mean that the team is going to be bad. Like I said, you get Schroeder and Harrell in there, Gasol as well to a degree, and you still have Anthony Davis to lead you on nights that LeBron takes off or nights that LeBron maybe plays less minutes. I still think the Lakers are going to wind up with the best record in the West this season.
Let's flip it to another superstar in this league, Kevin Durant. I'm sure all the eyes are going to be on him with the Brooklyn Nets, and a lot of people are writing them into the finals, writing them into a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And I date back to last year and all the media hype that the Sixers had. The year before, all the media hype that the Boston Celtics had, and they fell on their face. So my question to you is, how do you feel right now looking at Kevin Durant and Kyrie together? Do you think that it's a cakewalk, or do you think there might be some bumps and bruises along the way?
It's definitely not a cakewalk. And, I mean, you look at that division with Boston, with Toronto, and with Philly, obviously, there's really good teams in there. It's going to be very competitive. So I think from a win total perspective, I don't necessarily know, or a win percentage perspective, I don't know if they're going to wind up winning that division. There's a lot of competitive teams in that division that are good bets, but they certainly have the most talent, and I would bet on them to. I would favor them, at least the way that they are favored, to come out of the East. I think they deserve to be favorites over Milwaukee, really, when you look at the level of talent that they have. And it's not just Kyrie and Durant. Other good players there: Levert, Dinwiddie, DeAndre Jordan, Joe Harris just got paid. Allen, another big guy there. So they have a lot of pieces. The big question is two things for me. I mean, we have to see Durant stay healthy, which for the most part in his career he has. It's just been this one big thing. And then Kyrie Irving, he hasn't been healthy either last year with Brooklyn or during his time in Boston. So not only does he have to stay healthy, he has to stay mentally positive to the degree that he's not going to have one of these outbursts that kind of derails his team. It was clearly an issue in Boston that even though things haven't worked out with Kemba Walker yet, the locker room got a lot better with Kemba Walker in over Kyrie Irving. So the Nets have a lot of issues that they need to work out to prove that they should be favored in the East. But from a pure talent perspective, it's tough to go anywhere else.
Julian Edlow joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Julian Edlow on Twitter for your NBA, DFS, and sportsbook analysis. Julian, I mentioned this idea earlier, and I'll throw it out to you, and you could chew on it, or you can tell me I'm crazy. So I think that I'm watching this Kyrie Durant situation. I'm starting to wonder if it doesn't work. Let's say Durant and Kyrie can't get along. They're too much, conflicting. There's too much clashing going on. Could maybe that be the key to Harden getting out of Houston? Is the Nets say, you know what, this Kyrie thing isn't working. Why don't we just swap Kyrie for Harden?
I love that idea, and as somebody that has covered the Boston Celtics a little bit in the past, I was kind of part-time on my way out, going full-time into the DFS and sportsbook stuff during Kyrie's first year here in Boston. So I only got a little bit of coverage with him. But I would do that now if I'm Brooklyn. It's happened a little bit too much recently with Kyrie. It happened last year where he, didn't seem to be in the best state of mind. And then he starts off this year saging arenas and saying that he's not going to talk to media, which is clearly in his contract something he gets paid like $30 million a year to do. That's one of your duties. I just think that Kyrie Irving is I don't even know the word to describe Kyrie Irving, but I would rather have James Harden than Kyrie Irving, and I don't need to see how KD and Kyrie play out to believe that. It's not like James Harden is a random guy. He's somebody that has a good relationship with Kevin Durant from their time in OKC. So I would, and James Harden's just as talented as Kyrie Irving is. James Harden is a more unique talent right now. He might not be quite the highlight reel that Kyrie is. His style is, more effective, but a little bit rougher on the eyes. The step back threes getting fouled and all that. But I think Harden and Durant is a better combo than Kyrie and Durant, and I wouldn't hesitate to make that happen if that's what it took.
How do you read the James Harden debacle right now? I mean, we saw this morning that he's apparently throwing basketballs at his teammates, and, there were reports from Woj and Shams about Ben Simmons being available. Daryl Morey shut it down. Do you think that the 76ers is a real possibility? Like, what do you see right now with everything happening with James Harden?
I absolutely think the 76ers is a real possibility. I don't think James Harden's a bad guy or a bad teammate. I think that he is just doing what he can to get out of Houston. He clearly doesn't want to be there, and the season starts tonight, so you better make it happen, quick, especially in an abbreviated season like this one. So I just think James Harden wants out of Houston. Every indication seems to point to that, and there's only so many places that he can go, only so many places he can make a trade work. And if you're going to Brooklyn and it's not for Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant, it's almost impossible to do. So I think the Kyrie and Harden swap would be the only real way to do that. But if you're Philly, it has to be – there's no way to do it without Simmons or Embiid, and Simmons is the more reasonable name in that scenario. So that's one that if I'm Philly, again, it's a talent upgrade. Simmons is great, but without a jump shot, he can't be that game-changing player that Harden is. So I make that swap and upgrade my talent if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers.
Now, though that being said, the Sixers, Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers have both said multiple times they came to Philadelphia specifically because Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are here. So it's not just one guy, it's both guys saying that. So how much do you buy into them saying that, and how do you think that translates into this season? Because Doc Rivers is saying he expects to have the number one defense in the league. People believe Joel Embiid is in the quote-unquote best shape of his life. People believe this is a much upgraded roster. So how do you view that situation?
Well, they're being truthful about one thing. They can be a very good defensive team with Ben Simmons, and the Sixers are a better defensive team with Ben Simmons, no doubt about it. But if those guys showed up to Philly and they had James Harden and Joel Embiid instead of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, you can probably just insert the same quote with James Harden's name, and they would be just as excited or more excited to have that duo. So you got to say what you got to say. We've seen it happen plenty of times where you promote the talent that you have, and then if a situation comes up where you can become more talented, you generally take advantage of it.
Julian Edlow joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Julian Edlow for all your DFS Sportsbook NBA analysis. Julian, one more before we let you go. Is there a team that we have not talked about yet that you are excited for this NBA season as it starts tonight?
I mean, I think we know who the contenders are. We know who the major players are in the East, and we got the Lakers and the Clippers out West. What I will say, I don't think that any of these teams have a shot to win it, but it'll be interesting to see how some teams take a step like the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, who is, the favorite for MVP. If he takes that step, he should be able to elevate the Mavericks to a level where they're and they played the Clippers tough last year, and even tougher out in the Western Conference. And then you got the Phoenix Suns, who I think that 8-0 momentum from the bubble is going to carry over a bit. I think that gave them some confidence that they didn't necessarily have before. And Devin Booker is a legit superstar. So you add Chris Paul to that mix, and the way that he should help DeAndre Ayton get easier buckets around the rim, I think that that's a team that should jump into the playoff mix and be able to make some noise and at least be an exciting team to follow throughout the season. So not necessarily contenders, but teams on the up in the Western Conference, I would say.
Julian, always appreciate the time. Good to hear from you and enjoy the action tonight.
All right, thanks, guys. You too.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN at 2 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by Recovery Centers of America Drug and Alcohol Addiction Treatment Centers located in Mays Landing, New Jersey and Devon, PA. 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Still to come, Geoff Nadu from Barstool Sports, Big Man on Basketball Podcast. Also talk some basketball coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. I'm Josh Hennig. He's Hunter Brody. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash along with Hunter Brody. He's in here as usual. So, Dan from EHT. Loyal listener, texting a lot. I'm only picking one of your texts, Dan, so I can't read them all because we got other texts to get to, but I want to read his second text. He says, Dan from EHT, I want Doug to say this season was not good enough, and they have underachieved by a lot. Until he owns up to that, I'm not happy as a fan. Wentz has been the same. Accountability is a problem with their culture.
Well, that would fall on Doug if that's what he's pointing at.
He's pointing at Doug, but he's
Okay.
saying but also Wentz, too.
Oh, sure. I think absolutely. Doug and Carson have to be starting the accountability train. They're the most two important pieces to an organization, the head coach and the quarterback. So absolutely they do. And I think one of the reasons why you're not hearing Doug say anything about the full season is they still look at this as we have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Like they are in their heads. I know for fans and media it might be a little different, but in their heads, they look at this as, are we out of this thing? Absolutely not. If we win the next two games, we still have a chance. So until they are officially eliminated and until maybe it's a couple weeks after the season, I don't think you'll hear Doug actually assess and review this season.
Probably not until after the season.
Yeah, I agree.
Or maybe even like, when the media meets with the coach of the combine, they have that little round table. Maybe he talks about it more then kind of thing. But you're right. In season, they're focused on trying to make the postseason, for better or worse.
Exactly. Yeah, they're looking at this matchup on Sunday, and that's what they're worried about, and that's what I want him to be worried about. I know Doug, just like Carson. Carson knows he's played bad. Doug knows this is an underwhelming season. It's not as if Doug Peterson's sitting at home going, hey, babe, we're doing great. No, he knows it's just not the time to make the statement about the full season.
609-403-0973 text chimes in says, you guys are falling for the Sixers hype again. The majority of Sixer fans believe that they were going to make the finals last year. They didn't win a playoff game. Danny Green and Seth Curry are below average starters. Tyrese Maxey will be lucky if he averaged double digits. Well, first of all,
did we say anything about making the finals?
Well, he's saying last year.
Well, last year everyone got sucked in. Yeah, but
right.
For this upcoming season, I've been pretty consistent on saying they're like a 4th, 5th seed.
Well, first of all, I spoke to multiple NBA people who covered the league last year, all right, when I started doing game night and the warm-up and all those shows. I had everybody from Ben Golliver to Brandon Robinson and Dave McMenamin. I've read other stories by people like Brian Windhorst and others. I've heard Kevin Pelton on with Gil. Everyone thought the Sixers had a chance to make the finals. It's not us falling for the hype. The whole world thought they were going to do that. So I'm sorry, Texter. Everybody was wrong. I'm sorry. We're never going to be 100% right. Now, I will also say, if you think that Danny Green and Seth Curry are below average starters in the NBA, you don't watch enough NBA. You know how many garbage players are in the league right now? Do you realize that the Boston Celtics are depending on Jeff Teague?
I will say, I don't think those two are NBA. Danny Green, yes, but he's more towards the back nine. But I don't look at those two in this starting five as an NBA title starting five, but they're still a very good starting five.
Right. I'm not expecting Danny Green and Seth Curry to win you a championship. I'm asking them to be better than last year's team. That's all. And Tyrese Maxey, come on. If you watched him in college, you know how good he is. You know who likes Tyrese Maxey? Geoff Nadu. Coming up next, here on the Sports Bash, the 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, text board is open, 609-403-0973. I see somebody is displeased with my trashing of Geoff Teague on the text board. We'll get that text a little bit later. But right now, joining us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline, he joins us every Tuesday here on 97.3 ESPN. He is the big man on campus, Geoff Nadu. Follow him on Twitter at Geoff Nadu. Also check out the Big Man on Basketball podcast. And we'll get into more basketball right here with Geoff on 97.3. Geoff, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. So, first of all, we got to remind the people that you gave everybody a couple of nice winners on Saturday. I had that over on the Gonzaga game. I had San Jose State in their game, and those were two winners on Saturday. So thank you very much, Geoff.
No problem, man. Whatever I can do to help.
So tonight, NBA season opening up for the everybody to watch. You know, obviously it's only two games tonight, but, you know, what are your thoughts on the two games tonight? Because I know a lot of people are, I know I'm interested to see about this Durant, Kyrie Irving experiment. I know a lot of people are looking at the Lakers as prohibitive favorites. So, you know, how are you feeling about the prime time matchups tonight and how these teams look out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, you know, the first game is really interesting, and I want to make it clear it's really tough to bet the actual first night of the NBA. Generally, it's small cards. It's generally higher end, you know, marquee teams. It's hard to find value in these kind of games, but yeah, I think when you look at the first game, I have some interest in the Warriors. I bet them at 7.5. I thought it was a little too high. Look, could the Nets come in here and thrash the Warriors? Sure they could. But, you know, you mentioned the experiment. That's what it is. And it's an experiment, and it's an experiment that will either work or it'll take some time to work or it'll fail. Look, when you look at both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, we know how good Durant is. Kyrie Irving's a bit of a lunatic, though, and we know that. I think early on it's going to take some time to kind of get familiarized with all these guys. There's only one basketball. I think tonight we could see a lot of isolation basketball from the Brooklyn Nets, and you know, I think that's what the Warriors want. This is a good Warrior team. I know a lot of people will be mystified by the fact that Klay Thompson's not in there and Draymond Green's not going to play tonight, but you know, the truth of the matter is they still have Stephen Curry. They have Andrew Wiggins. They brought in Kelly Oubre. They have James Wiseman. They have some good bench players. I think they're a bit more underrated than this number. The public's back in the Nets, and I thought they would, but I'll take a little shot with the Warriors. I don't get too deep in the first night, you know, as far as the first overall night. The other game's tough. You know, it's two really good teams. I think the Clippers are a little overvalued, though. I think they come into the season worse than they were last year. You're depending on a guy like Paul George, who is not a guy I would want to depend on. Lakers should get the job done, but I won't be betting that one.
Looking at the Eastern Conference, when I see this Bucks team and the moves that they made in the offseason, specifically Drew Holiday and the impact that he has, how do you personally view them now compared to last year?
That's a great question. That's a question that I kind of asked some of my colleagues and people that I respect their opinion. When I look at them, they kind of remind me of the Sixers. I don't think that they got – I know it kind of might seem like they got better, but I don't know how really better they got. I still don't think they're a team that should be the number one team as far as odds in the East. Do they have Giannis? Yes. Do they have a happy Giannis now? Yes. He just got paid. But the truth of the matter is you lose Robin Lopez. He's a solid big for them. Yeah, they do get an upgrade at guard with Holiday, but you know, Holiday's a really good, solid player. Is he a guy to put them over the top? I'm not so sure. I think their two guard is a question mark. I don't know how and ready Dante DiVincenzo is ready to be that guy. You know, Brook Lopez, good. I don't think he's Robin. So, yeah, I like some of the pieces they brought in, but there's still a lot of question marks. They didn't do much in the draft. I don't know if they got markedly much better. I still think they're a team that will miss it when it matters most.
Geoff, I've been doing some catching up on the NBA season and everything, and I've heard a lot of people say that this season is going to come down to who has the most depth. What team has the most depth? Because between COVID and injuries and the shortened offseason, I'm hearing a lot of guys saying, the depth of certain teams is going to kill them. Is there a team out there that has a lot of depth that you're keeping an eye on for them to potentially be a surprise this year?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to surprise anyone, but I think they're going to do a lot better than people think as far as where people think they are. I think it's a safe case to make that the Dallas Mavericks are the second best team in the West. I think they're better than the Clippers. I do. I think when you look at this roster, bringing in a guy like Josh Richardson, who we know in Philadelphia, I liked Richardson. I thought he was an all-around two-way player that I think could really benefit a team like the Mavs. They really missed that, guy that can kind of play alongside Luka that's not a big, that can shoot the basketball, that can defend. This was a bad defensive team last year. It was really their undoing. When they get Porzingis back healthy, you bring in a guy like Richardson who can be a starter. He can give you 20 a night if you need to. They have some great depth. Jalen Brunson. You bring in Tyrell Terry, who I thought was the best shooter in this draft. People don't give Willie Cauley-Stein enough credit. He's one of the better solid role players in the NBA that doesn't get enough credit. He's a solid offensive player. He's a really good defensive player. They also have Finney-Smith. They bring back Kleber. They bring back Powell, Trey Burke. This is a very deep basketball team. And I didn't even mention Tim Hardaway Jr., who's been a solid NBA pro. They're very deep. I think when it's all said and done, Luka Doncic will be the MVP. And I think he vaults the Mavs to the Western Conference Finals and maybe even into the NBA Finals. One other team to keep an eye on, I continue to bite on the Phoenix Suns. You talk about a team that I think is way better than they were last season. This is a team that should have been in the playoffs. The bubble, they went 8-0. They should have been in. I think they would have had a better outcome than the Portland Trailblazers did. But when you look at Chris Paul, he's a Hall of Famer. Him and Devin Booker, that's as good a guard duo as you'll find. And I thought that one of the more underrated moves in the offseason was going out and getting Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder's been a top defender in this league for a long time. He can match up with LeBron. He can match up with, Luka. He can match up with some of the really good players in the West. Mikal Bridges is a solid defender as well, and they have some solid depth too. So, I'm looking a little bit outside of the box. You're not going to get any value on betting the Lakers, but I think the Dallas Mavericks and Phoenix Suns are all worth buys this year.
Speaking of depth, I want to get your opinion on the Sixers' depth. If you look at the bench, it looks something like Shake Milton, Furkan, Dwight Howard, Mike Scott, and maybe Tyrese Maxey beating out Matisse Thybulle. What are your thoughts on how the Sixers are from a bench perspective?
What you mentioned doesn't really move the needle, just to be honest. Dwight Howard's a good – I thought Dwight Howard was a solid pickup. They really haven't had a big that they can play big minutes with. People liked Boban Marjanovic, but I don't care about funny comedians on the court. I want guys that can play. Howard can still play at his age, and he's been around winners. Mike Scott had a terrible season last year. I have no interest in him. Shake Milton, I think you have something there. He's really looked really solid as far as from what I've seen from him. I think Maxey could be interesting. He could either be really good or really poor. Keep an eye on Paul Reed, though, if he's able to make this team and be in there and get some minutes. He was a solid player at the Paul. He did some really good things there. But from a bench perspective, there's not a lot to like here, in my opinion.
Geoff Nadu joining us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Geoff Nadu. Check out the Big Man on Basketball podcast. Subscribe, download it. New episode I know is dropping tomorrow. And you want to follow Geoff for all of his latest picks, odds, opinions on everything going on in the sports world. And speaking of everything going on, I want to get your perspective on this James Harden stuff, because right around the time last night, the Heat were like, okay, we're out, were the reports. The report came out that apparently Harden is chucking basketballs at teammates. This situation is just bizarre.
It really is. Look, it's pretty simple. James Harden doesn't want to play in Houston. It's pretty simple. And, look, when you get people that are unhappy with where they are in their job, things are going to start happening. Houston's going to be a major fade coming to the season. I can't wait to bet against them. They're just a complete mess right now. Now you're looking at, the Denver Nuggets won't involve Jamal Murray in any deal for Harden. Look, Harden's getting a bad rap and all this. Harden just wants to, I think, play somewhere and get his, get what he wants. I, for the life of me, won't understand why the Philadelphia 76ers won't go and get James Harden. I don't know why they're so attached to Ben Simmons. It's really odd at this point. Especially with the history of Daryl Morey. When are we going to stop screwing around and realize how long are we going to throw away, the potential that we thought we had here just waiting for a guy like Ben Simmons to create something? He hasn't done it in 4 years. What are we still doing here? Let me ask you guys, if you were with a woman for 4 years and she cheated on you, she didn't do anything you asked her to do, she was never helpful to anything in your life, how long are you going to hold on to her? Are you just going to keep holding on to her? No, eventually you get sick of it and move on to something better. James Harden is a proven player. He's the best scorer in this league. He wants to be with a winner. Him and Embiid would be terrific together. I think he'd get the best out of Joel. You have some really good ancillary pieces around them now. What is the obsession with Ben Simmons in this town? I'll never see it. I'll never understand it. And they're going to make the same mistake, guys, they did a couple of years ago when I think they could have had Kawhi Leonard. Now, if he would have stayed, that's the big question. But they could have traded Ben Simmons back then and maybe got a championship out of it because he went into Toronto and ended up winning one. It sucks. I like James Harden. It's a shame that he's having to deal with what's going on. I don't feel sorry for him. He makes a ton of money, but they're going to be a great fade to start the season. I know that.
Now, your description of Ben, and also the woman dating and she cheats on you about 100 times, kind of reminded me of, I feel like there's a similar concept in football, whereas you find these coaches who are like, I can rehab any quarterback, like when Gruden collects about 20 quarterbacks. I feel like, is there maybe a similar situation with Simmons where there's like every coach rolls around, it's like, I'm going to be the guy that unlocks that? Is maybe that what's going on here?
Yeah, it definitely could be, and I think that's something across the street with the football team you have to deal with too, because you don't want to give up on Wentz, but you also want to kind of, what would he look like with weapons? What would he look like with a different coach? What would he look like with a different GM? I get their thought process saying, well, we'll put another coach in here and see how that works. But Ben comes out today and says, my mentality's never changed. I'm here to win a championship. Okay, that's fine. But you're not doing anything to get better to win a championship. One thing that I have had it with Keith Pompey showing me photos of Ben Simmons shooting threes and warm-ups. Shoot him in the game or don't do it. I'm sick of seeing it. I'm sick of seeing the video. If you want to win a championship, take the steps. Look, I didn't want to be fat anymore, so I lost 100 pounds. I went out and I did it. Nobody made me go out and run in the hot summer. Nobody makes you go out and run in the cold. I do it because I want to be better. I don't think Ben Simmons has that bone in him. It doesn't seem like he does because he would have did it already, and he hasn't.
This is incredible. We're cracking up back here. It's phenomenal to hear the passion come out about Ben Simmons. It really is great. I want to transition to college football because we had the top 4 come out recently. Notre Dame slipped into that 4th spot. I just want to get your thoughts on it. I mean, the way I see it is, yeah, they did beat Clemson before, but we know that there were players missing. But if you look at, okay, who's 5, who's 6, A&M, and you have Cincinnati, no matter who's getting thrown into that slot, I don't think they have a damn chance anyway.
And that's the growing thought. One of my former, he's a good friend to me, Donnie Wright, said he has that thought process. He doesn't want to see your Coastal Carolinas. He doesn't want to see your Cincinnati. And I do understand. I mean, because as you said, if you throw a Washington in there, you throw a Pac-12 team, you throw a G5 team in there, they're not going to compete. They're likely going to get destroyed. And people always have that hope that like a Boise State will do it or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, if BYU throws the ball to the end zone instead of the 3-yard line, Coastal Carolina likely loses. If Cincinnati had close calls. I mean, Cincinnati, I don't want to see them in the playoff. But then I do say on one wavelength, I want it like college basketball where they at least have a shot. The problem that college football has created is they've made it to a point where if you're not in the Power 5, you just don't have a shot at it. And that's where they kind of push me off because if you're good enough, and you have the ability, you should get in. And, college basketball, if Alabama A&M wins the SWAC and then goes to the NCAA tournament and then beats 8 teams in a row, whatever it is, they could be the national champion. There's no issue. That's not like that in college football, and that's where I have an issue, though, as well. So it's a two-way street, but I wouldn't mind seeing Alabama Clemson again either. So.
No, and neither would I. And listen, I love college football. Like I'm over passionate. Like Hunter and Gil sometimes make fun of me a little bit for how much I love college football. But even for me, like I look around at the college football this year and like while it was a wild season, listen, I don't know if anybody's beating Alabama unless it's Clemson. And, it doesn't matter if it was Notre Dame or Ohio State or their stupid excuses for why Iowa State and Georgia and Oklahoma were ranked in the top 10. At the end of the day, what's really going on here, Geoff, is it's a made-for-television product. This is not about what's fair. It's about making money. And let's be realistic. Notre Dame brings more eyeballs to the table than, let's say, Coastal Carolina.
Right, and that's it's a popularity contest. It's like that in every level of football. Like when you look at college football, Heisman Trophy. I mean, I remember a couple of seasons ago. I don't know if you guys remember this guy, but played for Navy, Keenan Reynolds.
Yep.
I thought he had the best season of any quarterback in the country.
He was incredible. He was amazing.
Yeah, he wasn't even invited. And it's a popularity contest. It's like it's like being a homecoming queen. I mean, it's usually going to go to the prettiest looking girl or the best looking guy or whatever. That's how it goes. Politics is politics, and people want to see Clemson. People want to see Notre Dame. And that's where, for me, college basketball will always reign supreme over college football, at least in my eyes. I know the South will disagree, and, numbers standpoint, they would agree. But, from a sheer competition standpoint, the NCAA tournament is the best product because, and like I said, if you're the Citadel and you win enough games, you have a shot to win. And I like that. In college football, you don't have that.
He's Geoff Nadu. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Geoff Nadu for all of his picks throughout the year. He drops those videos randomly throughout the day. You may want to hit that notification icon so you get the alerts when Geoff's putting out those videos. Also, check out the Big Man on Basketball podcast. New episode drops tomorrow, right, Geoff?
Yeah, I actually have a great episode tomorrow, guys. I have an interview with Hot Sauce dropping from the M1 Mixtape Tour. I got a really cool interview with him. We talked about all sorts of cool stuff and just about his life. I think he's a fascinating guy, and it was one of my basketball bucket list items to talk to him. So, that'll drop on Wednesday. We'll have picks as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I want to hear that interview for sure. Big Man on Basketball. Hit that subscribe button. Download the podcast when it drops tomorrow. As all guests, Geoff appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Great stuff today, Geoff.
Thanks, guys. Always appreciate you having me on. Have a good holiday.
Josh Hennig along with Hunter Brody here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash being brought to you by Delaware Valley Acura Dealers for great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup. Shop online at DelaValleAcuraDealers.com. He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig. We'll get back to text in just a bit. 609-403-0973, the PlaySugarHouse.com text board here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Welcome back into the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Sports Bash being brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit them online at gmslaw.com. I'm just mixing in the Christmas music a little bit. Just a little bit. Once an hour.
That's fine. Yeah, for sure.
Spice it up.
Gil did it the whole show yesterday.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to be like anybody else. I'm just trying to do my own thing.
No, but I'm saying this is where your mind gets too into this whole, well, if other people are doing it, I can't. No, this is fine. It's Christmas week, so you're allowed to do it even though someone else did it.
Well, I'm actually just doing what I want. But.
Okay, that also works.
609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board, 609-403-0973. Also, you have a story to tell.
I do.
So we got to get to that in a little bit as well. But I want to get to a couple texts here because a texter did disagree with my Jeff Teague synopsis. Texter says Jeff Teague is made an all-star. He's way better than Danny Green and Seth Curry. Danny Green was a great 3-and-D guy. He's far from that now. He's a liability for the Lakers last year. Now, first of all, I'm really getting fatigued with the liability Danny Green last year because that was something that got started by a handful of people in the media.
Well, there was a stretch where he was shooting like 20-something% from 3.
Yeah, but here's the problem. No one talked about why he was still in the lineup. Was he in the lineup because he was shooting 20% from 3? No. It was because when they were playing the Rockets and the Nuggets and all those other teams, the Lakers needed a perimeter defender. And there was a stretch there, remember, there was no Rondo. And there was no Avery Bradley last year. Remember, he opted out of the bubble. So they needed Green to play a lot of minutes to get those perimeter defenders. Because you weren't going to waste LeBron's energy guarding, C.J. McCollum and Jamal Murray the whole time, right? So you need somebody to help with some of these perimeter defenders, these perimeter guards. And that's why he was playing. So he was not really much of a liability as he thought he was, because if he was such a liability, I doubt he had been in the lineup so much.
I don't know if the texter was talking about defensively or was he speaking about just in terms of not knocking down his shots, because I do think it's two different things.
It doesn't matter to me because I've heard this term used on social media and by talking heads on television about Danny Green being a liability for the Lakers. And honestly, I'm fed up with it. You can't base everything on stats. Everything is not a stat to be used for analysis. When I watch a game, whether it's football, basketball, no matter what the sport, I let my eyes tell me one thing, and then after the game, I see what the numbers are with the stats to be like, all right, well, that was an interesting other takeaway. And maybe then I'll go rewatch the game again to see if the stat that I just observed lines up with the game as well. You can't just say, well, Danny Green was shooting 20% from threes, the liability. No. You got to watch the game. And for the Sixers, you don't want Jeff Teague because you don't need Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague doesn't fill the need. You need a perimeter defender whose name is not Matisse Thybulle. That's what Danny Green does. You need a three-point shooter who's going to spread the floor like J.J. Redick used to. That's Seth Curry. By the way, Seth Curry is one of the best floor spacers in the entire league. All right? Jeff Teague, he's a former All-Star. Former being the key word. Do you know how old Jeff Teague is?
Mid-30s at this point?
He's 32.
Okay. A little younger than I thought, but still, I mean, he's in that range of he's no longer in his legitimate prime.
You know how old Danny Green is?
32.
33.
33. Close.
They're the same age. You're acting like Danny Green is some washed up. By the way, Jeff Teague was a one-time All-Star. One time.
I'm somewhere in between both of you. Like, I think it is fair to say that Danny Green is past his prime and his best basketball is absolutely behind him.
But I don't need him to play his best basketball.
No, you're right. And that's where I'm saying I'm with you that Seth Curry and Danny Green, way better option than Jeff Teague. I mean, it's not even close. So to look at what Jeff Teague did in the past and say, oh, that's better than Seth and Danny Green, I think that that's ridiculous. But I do think it's fair to look at what he did last year, and he went through a stretch of shooting the basketball very poorly, and that's what shooters do. They are streaky. That is why they're shooters. They go through stretches of hot basketball. They go through some cold stretches as well. We saw that with J.J. Redick throughout games. So
how many times did you get calls in the Sports Talk with Bros, or we get texts on the Sports Bash? J.J. Redick needs to be benched. He hasn't hit a 3 in 3 games. And then the next game he goes 6 for 8.
Exactly. So when I look at them, I do see a scenario, though, where Danny Green's best basketball is behind him, but that doesn't mean the Sixers are in a bad spot to have him either. So I'm somewhere in between both of you two.
I do enjoy the feedback from the listeners.
Of course.
I'm not hating on
it's all love. It's all sports debate, going back and forth. It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
Now, what's not a beautiful thing is the story you got to tell me, which you've been teasing me for about 5 hours now. So I need to hear at least one of these stories here.
Okay, I do have 2. And I don't know which one pops more. I think they're both kind of ridiculous. I'll start with this one. This one is, it's just weird. It's one of those, how did this happen kind of thing.
I got to hear this.
Okay, so I was on the phone with my father yesterday, right? And I was driving back from the studio, and we were talking about things. And he said, I was talking, because remember the Wawa story I told maybe a month ago where someone paid for my coffee?
Oh, the pay it forward situation.
Right, but I didn't pay it for the guy behind me because I realized that they had a little too much in their hands.
Right.
So I was on the phone with my father, and he brought up that he heard a similar story. He said he was talking to one of his friends. He was at Dunkin' Donuts, right? And this is specifically the story he laid out. He said his buddy was at Dunkin' Donuts. Someone paid for his coffee, but the individual behind him had a $50 Dunkin' Donuts meal.
Good grief.
So his friend said no.
All right.
No, I'm not doing that. Thank you so much for the coffee. How about this morning, I go to Dunkin' Donuts, I get a coffee for my fiance and myself, and I get up to the window, and the woman goes, oh, the person paid for you in front. And I'm like, oh, wow. So I asked the question, how about the person behind me? You don't want to do that. It's a $50 bill.
Oh, my goodness.
In what world would that play out? The following day.
The exact same way.
The exact same story, same place, same amount of money with the person behind me. Now, is that not the weirdest thing in the world? It kind of freaked me out. I almost didn't know what to do. I wasn't even driving at that point. My body was just taken over with, confusion.
Right.
That's weird, right?
That's very weird.
What are the odds of that exact thing playing out?
I want to know what's more weird also. Is it more weird to have a $50 order at Dunkin' Donuts or Wawa? I feel like Dunkin' Donuts is weirder.
I was thinking maybe it was someone buying food for a business, maybe getting a bunch of donuts, maybe the
but
box
you know how many
of coffee.
donuts that's got to be? That's a lot.
I honestly don't know how much a dozen of donuts are at Dunkin' Donuts, but
I'm gonna look it up real quick.
It is funny. I was thinking the same thing. As if, hold on a second. They spent $50 at Dunkin'?
Right. What do you, I understand Wawa because we've all been the person who goes, hey, man, Wawa run. What do you want? And we all, throw in money, right? We all throw in a little money, get a couple extra things. But I'm looking up Dunkin' right now with the cost of this stuff.
Now, did this story underwhelm you?
No. I thought it was interesting
Okay.
because I want to understand what on earth you're spending $50 on at Dunkin'. I'm literally clicking on random items on the Dunkin' Donuts menu so I can open them up and add them all up in a little...
Like the other story, just to throw it out there before I tell it whenever we get to that, that's more of a mistake by me. I messed up. I had an error. And I want to get your thoughts on how I handled the situation. This one was more creepy. And it was kind of weird. This one right here, the Dunkin' Donuts one, almost freaked me out. As if, come on, you're telling me the same scenario played out to me the following morning after hearing that already happened. So this one was a little weird. The next one, I made a mistake. And I don't tend to do that, Josh. That's the thing. I'm always on the money.
Are you?
No. I make a lot of mistakes. I do. Especially at home with the fiance, you know?
All right. By the way, I'm not happy with the website here because I went to Dunkin's website to try to check out their menu, and guess what? They don't list prices on the website.
I couldn't even tell you if I've ever been to DunkinDonuts.com.
I haven't either until today.
Yeah, I mean, what would be the reasoning behind it?
And apparently, asking for what the prices are on here is apparently a pain.
Well, let me ask you this. Did I do the right thing by saying I'm not paying $50?
You absolutely did the right thing.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
You're not a rich man.
Well,
You're not LeBron James.
I am not LeBron.
You're not Russell Westbrook leaving $300,000 tips at places because you care about the person who took care of you all the whole time in the bubble.
That is correct.
Okay? You're not a millionaire. So, and you're also not a half a millionaire either.
What's
no
the cutoff? At what point is it? If it was $15, I think I'd probably pay $15.
So here's my thing.
That might be my limit, though.
I think everyone's situation is different, all right? And I know this is a very Josh answer, but I have a reason for saying it, okay? I feel like you have to do what fits into your financial situation. You know, for example, if you're someone who's making between $30,000 and $40,000 a year, you can't just be dropping $50, $100 on random stuff. Your money, you're tight with your money, right? But maybe if you're making between $50,000 and $60,000 a year, maybe $20 is not as much of a dent for you, right? Or 40 is not much of a dent. For example, there have been times that if I have really great service, and I'm really impressed by the person who's serving me, and I might look around and I notice that person is being treated like garbage by somebody else in the restaurant, I might throw in a little extra on the tip just to be like, I appreciate you.
That's a good job by you.
I can't speak for somebody else. Now, I can't do that all the time, but it's a situation-by-situation basis.
Okay.
So to me, like, for example, let's say you went to Wawa, all right? I'm just going to create a scenario. You go to Wawa, and you spend yourself $20. Person behind you comes up, they got something that's $10. And you were like, I can do that. I just spent 10 on mine. 20 on mine. An extra 10 is not going to bother me, right? But if the person behind you is out ordering you by that much, I think there's got to be a line drawn because you can't cover everybody's tab.
I thought it was funny, though, watching the person who I was asking who was taking my money. When I asked, hey, how much is the person behind? It was that look of, you don't want to know. Just keep driving. Trust me, you don't want to know.
Keep moving.
Yeah. So we'll tease the following story for later on in the show, but that one was where I have to admit I made a big-time mistake. Backfired.
By the way, how do you feel about this news? The Phillies are officially announcing Sam Fuld has been named the Phillies' new general manager, according to President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski announced today. Additionally, I guess this is Jorge Volandia, or is it George? I don't know. Has been promoted to assistant general manager, and Terry Ryan, the special assistant to the general manager. So everybody's getting assistance here.
So the way I read this is, you knew Dave Dombrowski was going to have autonomy once he stepped in the door, and Scott Lauber reported that even months ago. He said if Dave Dombrowski ends up becoming with the Philadelphia Phillies and they do hire him, he's going to have autonomy. So the way I see the GM and the assistant to the GM and this and that, it's just part of Dave Dombrowski's team. So I personally, I'm not going to dive like too insanely deep on what they do because ultimately we know who's making the decisions. It's sort of like if Daryl Morey had some help underneath him, which he does, and Elton Brand and some other guys. It's about Daryl Morey. At the end of the day, Daryl Morey is the ones pulling the strings, putting the team together, and making the moves, making the calls. That's how I feel about the Phillies' moves today. But I'm intrigued by it. But at the end of the day, Dave Dombrowski's the one that's been around, who built some World Series contenders, who's been the one who's made all the hard decisions in the past. So everything runs through him. So that's the way I kind of look at this. How about yourself, Sam?
So the biggest takeaway is it's obvious that he wanted to have a say in who he's working with on a daily basis.
And that's standard.
And I think it's very apparent that these people are not per se the McPhail and Clintack people. You know, obviously some of them have been in the organization already, like Ryan, for example. But he's kind of sitting there saying, I talked to everybody, and these are the people that I'm going to lean on, kind of thing.
Well, I was curious what Ned Rice was going to do because he was the interim GM.
Well, apparently he's not in anymore.
Right. I was real curious to see how that all shaped up. Would they keep him? Because remember, everyone said that he was a Matt Clintack 2.0. So if they did nothing this offseason and they went in with Ned Rice as the guy, you were essentially going through another year of Matt Clintack because that's the way that he operates. So I'm happy that they went in another direction with the Ned Rice scenario. But at the end of the day, you look at this, and this is Dave Dombrowski's team no matter what they hire after him. It's all what guys he feels comfortable with. And, he looks around the league at people he used to work with, and they have this type of connection. So this is all part of the Dave Dombrowski process.
Now, the other thing is being suggested to people online that this is a sign that he's moving away from analytics a little bit, and he's going more to the traditional baseball guys. Your thoughts on that?
You know me. I definitely want to go in the new generation of baseball. I want to start trending, and it doesn't need to be to the level of the Rays, where you're not having your starters go through the third time around the lineup. Although I do agree with a lot of the analytical approach. I really do. I'm starting to get more and more involved in how it all operates, and I'm starting to get sucked into that world. It doesn't need to get to the extreme of Tampa Bay. But I do think going in the other direction is a little underwhelming. Me personally, and I know people are probably banging on the table saying like, oh, analytics sucks, this and that. It's a big part of the game, though. And I know it's not what everyone wants because it's not as pleasing to the game, but it's the way the game is being operated. So to go in another direction, I'm not saying that ultimately means this is going to fail. That's not the only way to win. Analytics isn't the only way to win. You can win in other areas. I wish that they married the two, and it doesn't seem like they're going to marry the two. Although they put a lot into building that analytical team and the building that they have in Philadelphia. So it's just weird.
Here's the thing. Analytics are not evil. Analytics are not bad. The use of anything too much is bad, okay? People act like things are bad because they have bad experiences with those items, okay? It's like, for example, you can have a bad hamburger at a restaurant. It doesn't mean that every restaurant that serves burgers is bad, okay? Or you could have a bad experience, dealing with a type of individual. You know what I mean? Like, I had a bad experience with, somebody who runs a parking lot, right? What does it mean every parking lot attendant is a bad person, okay? And I think that's the problem with analytics. People look at analytics and they say, well, analytics caused this and that, okay? Or Gabe Kapler or Chip Kelly or whatever. And people act like it's all bad. It's all stupid. Well, you know what? Not using analytics is not smart either. Because then what you're doing is you're limiting your information options. And that's really what the problem is. It's not analytics. It's how you use analytics. As you said, if you use analytics for everything, then it's ridiculous. And if you use analytics for nothing, that's also ridiculous. I think there is a happy medium in the middle, and we'll see if Dombrowski actually uses the middle or if he leans one way or the other. I feel like after what he said, I don't think he's anti-analytics, because especially in Boston, the Red Sox are one of the biggest analytics front offices in baseball. So if Dombrowski could work there and they won a World Series, I don't see why he can't work it here in Philadelphia.
I agree. And when people look at what happened with Tampa Bay, and I keep bringing that up because obviously that's what people have been drilling when it comes to analytics working, not working. The Dodgers use just as much analytics as anybody involved in baseball. They just won the World Series. Now, what they do is they spend money. They have a lot of talent. They keep continuing to build a prospect pool where they have a bunch of guys. They can make trades. and they use analytics, so there's a lot in play with how they consistently succeed and win their division over and over and over again. But they win using that as well. So I just hate that it's, the Tampa Bay Rays, they failed in the World Series for using it, so it automatically stinks. Well, the team who won it uses it just as much. They just use it in a different way. So I'm with you. I do feel like there will be a tie, but it does seem like he leans more towards the scouting, the eye test, than the actual numbers. And with baseball, think about it. It really is all analytics. When you think about bringing in a reliever, okay, who's up the bat? What does he hit against lefties? What lefty am I going to bring out? Even if you don't like analytics and you're like, more of an eye test, more of a feel, this and that, baseball's always had numbers be a big part of your decision making. That's what baseball is. So it kind of confuses me a bit with the whole
baseball
analytics
the biggest number sport of all of them?
Absolutely. Like everything you do in baseball technically is using analytics because you're using numbers to
all the time.
Yeah, to base what's the best matchup for
runners
your team.
In scoring position, splits between a lefty versus a righty. That technically is analytics.
It is. It absolutely is. If you have a pinch hitter coming off your bench and you know he's
5 for 13.
Exactly. It's all analytics. All of it. Really, the whole game, if you think about it, is a number game analytically.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Keep the text coming, 609-403-0973. On the PlaySugarHouse.com text board, 609-403-0973. So to come, football forward with Geoff Mosher. Of course, joining us thanks to the Inside the Birds podcast, as well as Tuesday with Thompson at 5 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Happy holidays to all of our listeners. We listen online at the North Pole. Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho! From 97.3 ESPN.
I saw this story come across my feed, and I feel like my word of the day is intrigued now, because I feel like I've used it a few times. Well, color me intrigued with this. So tomorrow, Dave Pasch of ESPN will be calling a college basketball and NBA doubleheader himself.
Wow.
Now, he's not going to be in the arena for them. It's going to be done remotely because of, COVID and all that stuff. But he's going to be on the call with Jay Billis for the Oregon versus UCLA college basketball game at 3. Then, later that night, he's going to be on the call for the Mavs-Suns game with Mark Jackson. It's a little interesting. The guy's going to call 2 games in one day.
I'm just trying to think doing, let's say, 2 4-hour radio shows in a day. Now, I think I could get it done, but that's a lot. Like before I did this, I used to work at a job where it was physical labor, working in a warehouse. This was back in, more of my days of, before I really knew what I wanted to do. I was just working in the summers and doing my thing during school, and I was defeated afterwards. I'd need to take a nap. I'd be exhausted. I'd work out in the heat all day. You'd be surprised how talking for 4 hours beats you up. And I couldn't imagine doing that twice. An 8-hour show? How do you think you do with an 8-hour show?
I'd be exhausted, probably.
Defeated?
I don't know about defeated, but exhausted. Because I'm a guy who uses up a lot of energy. I'm 100 or nothing kind of guy.
You don't think I'm the same?
Oh, I know you are. You're like a little Energizer bunny at times. But I can tell, by the time you're done, you're like, I'm done. I've had it. Like I'm spent.
Do you sense at 3:49 on a Tuesday that I'm there?
No.
Good, because
But you'll be there at like 10:30 tonight.
10:30, watching some hoops.
Yeah, you'll be a little fried, but you'll still be watching the games because you love the sports. But you'll be like, I don't feel like producing another video, doing another podcast, doing another show.
You're right.
I've done enough today.
You're right. But I couldn't imagine doing 8 hours. Now, if you're telling me I had to do a show from 2 to 6 and then do a show from 8 to midnight,
well, the other thing is,
that's a lot.
Think about all the research that goes into that. First, you got to know both teams for Oregon and UCLA. Now you got to know both teams for the Mavs and the Suns. And you got to do all kinds of research, the rosters, the backstory. I mean, these guys who broadcast these games on national games, I mean, they know backstories. They got the production meetings.
Well, I'm going to ask you this. You know how normally, before all the COVID stuff happened, you would have meetings the day before with the coaches. And
they still do it.
I was going to say, do they have Zoom calls prior so they can still have that option?
Yeah, I've heard a couple people be interviewed about that, about how it's just different. They just do Zoom calls instead of meeting in person.
Right. I figured they still found a way to get it done, but I didn't know to what degree.
But that's a lot of prep work that goes into that. Now, you know what the other best part of this is? No Bill Walton.
Thank the Lord.
You got Jay Billis instead.
I am out.
Me
on
too.
him.
I'm
now,
100%
we talked
out.
about Aqib Talib. I was going to bring this up to Gil, but it wouldn't make sense. But could you imagine a call with Aqib Talib and Bill Walton combined? That was an Aqib Talib fan, and obviously it doesn't make sense, but I'm just saying how different that would sound with those two together.
Could they alternate quarters? Could that work?
That would be ruthless. But I can't stand Walton. I think the time is done. The shtick, it's too much.
It's old.
You went for it too much, too hard. You got to calm down.
I feel like he goes out of his way now. And I think people are enabling the behavior. Because first of all, there are times that he's just completely rude to the broadcaster he's with. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's disrespectful. I understand it's a shtick. I understand it's, he's fun. He's Bill Walton. No. There's a point where you got to do your job. Stop being an oblivious airhead and do your job. Bill Walton wasn't always like this either. You go back and watch games that Bill Walton broadcasted for NBA on NBC back in the 90s. He wasn't this airhead space cadet that he is now.
Well, maybe he's smoking a little something.
No, I think he's enabled. I think people are enabling this petulant behavior by him. That's the problem. Back in the day when there were a little more restrictions on your behavior on the radio or on television, he couldn't get away with this. Now he's getting away with it more and more. It's almost like he's like a child pushing the limit. See how much he can get away with.
But something tells me that they're seeing numbers that at least satisfy the companies to keep throwing him on the air, no?
Listen, there is a contingent of people who love him.
How?
There's a contingent of people who think he's hilarious, who thinks it's funny, who thinks he's entertaining.
He doesn't even talk about the game.
That's my problem. If I want an SNL skit, I'll watch SNL. If I want to see a stand-up comedy routine, I'll go find one on Netflix or Comedy Central. I don't tune in to a college basketball game for Steve Carell.
Now that would be something.
He actually might be better.
Did you see this video that was surfacing Twitter just about, 5 days ago or so, of Kevin Harlan announcing games in his basement?
Yes.
Awesome video.
Incredible.
Unreal. Imagine just having dinner with the family and then, all right, I got to go to work. And you go down and put on your headset. Now you're just calling NBA action on TNT.
Yep.
It's so cool to see the behind the scenes. It's almost as if someone sneaked the phone downstairs and recorded attention. He was paying attention to his work.
Yeah, I love Harlan. I mean, he was in, I don't know if you probably didn't hear the broadcast last night on the radio.
I did not hear it on the radio.
But the fourth quarter of the game last night, he was incredible.
How about that game
in
general?
He was in prime Kevin Harlan form. Just losing his mind last night.
Well, you were too, with how bad the Steelers played.
Well, I was losing my mind in a non-professional way. He was losing his mind in a, still describing the game.
Did you bet the Steelers or something?
No, I had no. You know what's funny? Someone mentioned that to me too. I had no money on the game. I'm out in fantasy. I already lost in my playoffs, so I'm not in a position, to win the big pot or anything. I'm just watching the game for the game, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Marquise Pouncey's supposed to be an all-pro center. You can't snap the ball that way. And Ben, you're a future Hall of Famer. You can't be grabbing the ball that way. I mean, it felt like everybody on that team was completely unable to do their job.
Well, over the last 3 games, the Pittsburgh Steelers were dropping back Big Ben about 44 times. Is that a recipe to succeed? And you can translate that
Horrible.
to Jalen Hurts, who threw the football 44 times. And they had a huge difference in the second half, 6 points, compared to when they were 50-50 in balance in pass run in the first half with 20 points.
I'm just not a fan in general of asking a quarterback to go out there and chuck the ball more than 40 times. I don't care who he is. And I'm not saying you have to run the ball all the time. I'm not one of those guys. I'm just saying at some point, there's no harm in handing the ball off on a jet sweep, on a off-tackle power run. You don't have to chuck the ball. And especially, guy, didn't he just have elbow surgery? Like, come on. It's ridiculous. More football talk coming up with Geoff Mosher. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Sports Bash. I'm Josh Hennig, filling with Mike Gill, along with Hunter Brody on 97.3 ESPN.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's not Andrew Checo today. It's Geoff Mosher joining us for the Inside the Birds podcast, a special edition with Mosher because, well, this week Christmas is on Friday. Tomorrow we're only on for an hour, so we're reshuffling the deck this week. But it's always good to have Geoff jump on the show. By the way, Geoff and Adam, the next podcast drops tomorrow morning, right, Geoff? That's the next time you and Adam got a pod dropping?
Yes, Josh, that'll be our normal middle of the week tape review, all 22 review podcast. So we'll have everything. And not just us breaking it down, but we obviously speak to people within the NFL, league sources who have viewed the tape themselves, and we give people an inside perspective on what they saw from the Eagles' offense, defense, and we'll probably, I would imagine, get to some of that special teams meltdowns as well.
Well, we haven't talked to you yet about the game on Sunday, so I just want to get your general synopsis because you and Adam talked on the pod on Monday about the fact that, listen, there were some positive takeaways from this game, but in many ways, it just felt like the team was just outgunned for a shootout, basically.
Yes, I think that's really fair. I mean, you see DeAndre Hopkins, the catch that he made on the go-ahead touchdown, that's really a catch that DeAndre Hopkins and a small select few of wide receivers in the NFL are going to make. The Eagles don't have a wide receiver like that. Alshon Jeffrey used to make some kind of catches like that, but although he is playing and contributing, he's not that kind of player anymore. Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham, both of those guys have shown the ability to go get the ball at times, but nothing quite like what DeAndre Hopkins can do and just completely take over and dominate a game from start to finish and make a catch like that.
How would you grade Doug Peterson after that performance? In the first half, I saw 20 points with a balanced offense, 18 passes, 16 rushes, only 6 points in the second half, and they dropped Jalen Hurts back a lot more. Then, you had the questionable go for two after they had the extra point, which later on it could have been 27-26, but instead it's different. So all around, what did you think about Doug Peterson's game plan?
I thought he would have to open it up a little bit more in the second half the way he did, Hunter, because of how the Cardinals were attacking. I mean, they were really starting to crowd the box. I noticed in the first half that many times that they were trying to run, it was against 7 and 8 man boxes. And when you see that opens up the outside to be able to make plays. And I thought, for a decent amount of time there, Jalen had to throw the ball 44 times, and he was able to make some pretty good plays. To be able to throw the ball 44 times and not be intercepted, especially in your second career start, first road start, was pretty good. So I understand what Doug was doing there. At first, I thought the fourth down that he went for it on was a terrible idea until I realized that he didn't have a punter at his disposal. But the going for two, I can't remember exactly what the score was at that time. I know he plays it by the analytics book in that situation. If you're down by, I think 11 or 12 at a certain point in the game, it always says there to go for two. So nothing really jumped out at me as just egregiously a bad call or just poor game planning from Doug in that game.
I was very impressed with Hurts's play because he overcame adversity. A lot of guys, they have a rough start to a game, a safety, the grounding call, and they let that dictate the rest of the game. Hurts put it behind him and grew and evolved. And, those 2 touchdown passes to Greg Ward, the way he played from the pocket, and even getting hit 6 times, I felt like there was a great deal of evolution from Hurts in that game.
Yeah, there's 2 things that really stand out, right? And one is, as you just mentioned, it looked like the what was going to hit the fan there after the first 15 minutes of the game. They're down 16-0 on the road. to a good Arizona team in Jalen Hurts' first start, and you kind of feel like that's going to be the point of unraveling for Hurts and the Eagles, and they did anything but unravel. In fact, they fought back and put points on the board and started to make it a game there in the second quarter. So I thought that was another example of Jalen Hurts showing some really good poise, some good leadership, unwaverability, if you want to call it. He has not yet looked like a guy who the moment was too big for. And that's impressive when you compare him to other rookies this year, because some of those guys, like obviously Justin Herbert, starting right away. Well, not right away, but a lot sooner, or becoming the focal point of their offense a lot sooner than Jalen Hurts. And Hurts is a second-round pick who most people felt in the league would be a third or a fourth. So for him to have that kind of moxie about him, I thought was really unique and obviously an attribute that helped the offense kind of not I guess go down with the ship when you're down 16-0. You could see that could be an issue sometimes for other quarterbacks. And then secondly, as I mentioned before, the Cardinals really came after him with a whole lot of different blitz schemes, and just, sometimes they were disguising, sometimes they really come after him. And he did get sacked 6 times, and a couple of those were on him holding on to the ball. But to be able to throw the ball 44 times and not have an interception, and I know that there was almost a pick 6. I think that's to be expected. There are going to be mistakes. But in general, to be able to spread the ball the way that he did, not really have to just rely on one single receiver, shows an evolution of his role as a quarterback in an offense that has always been, when it's functioned well under Doug, it's always been kind of an offense that's been spread around. Of course, Zach Ertz back, a year or two ago would catch a lot of passes from Carson, but for the most part, under Doug Peterson, there hasn't been that one guy who's going to catch 8 to 10 passes a game.
I'm definitely super intrigued from what I saw out of Jalen Hurts, and he's exciting to watch. The offense makes a lot more sense right now, but I just feel, for example, when you see him make that play where he fumbles the football, picks it up, throws it to Dallas Goedert, you hear, oh, this is awesome, Houdini extending plays, this is great, everyone's buying in. I feel like I heard that before. Oh, I did with Carson Wentz just a couple years ago, so I just feel that this excitement and everything I'm hearing about Jalen Hurts right now, which is valid and should be said, we've heard it before, so I don't know what to do with that information. I saw Fulgham go through 4 games of elite wide receiver play. Now he died off. I don't know. I'm torn on how to feel about this, because it takes me a while to get convinced that this is truly who he's going to be.
You know what? You phrased it so well, Hunter. That's something that Adam and I have been talking about, even in the last podcast, that I kind of feel for the Eagle fan, because ordinarily, in a situation like this, you just want to be so excited about the prospect of a young quarterback coming into his own, who you drafted. And, but those are the situations that you feel like when that quarterback is supposed to be your franchise leader. And it is exactly the sentiment that people felt about Carson Wentz in both 2016, when he started off 3-0 and, managed through a pretty decent rookie year. And then, of course, in 2017. So if the Eagle fan right now has to kind of balance his or her feelings about excitement over Jalen Hurts and what that means for the long term, because the more excited you get for Jalen means that you're almost excited for a quarterback uncertainty picture, and nobody wants that. And even if you do want Jalen Hurts as your quarterback going forward and you've given up on Carson Wentz, that alone should give you some kind of hesitation about how you'll feel that going forward, when you were just this excited about a different quarterback 3 years ago. And you take a step back, and ever since Donovan McNabb was shipped away on Easter of 2008, I want to say, it's been a new quarterback every 2 or 3 years, and that's certainly not a sign of stability. And we thought, and I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that in 2016 and 2017 that the Eagles had kind of figured it out. They hit it on the quarterback, and they were even different in free agency, right? They were just not blowing money on guys like Nnamdi, old guys, right? They had figured out guys to get on your second contract, which they do well, like Javon Hargrave. But the bottom line is you just want to be really comfortable in your team's process. And now you just start to look at the last 3 or 4 years, and it's like you won a Super Bowl, but you just wonder if the process has always been right, and having a new quarterback would not speak well to the process right after you sign Carson Wentz, such a long-term deal.
Geoff Mosher joining us here on Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. New episode drops tomorrow morning. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the download button. You get those alerts every time they drop a new episode of the pod. Of course, you can follow Geoff on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL. Now, you mentioned stability, Geoff, and that kind of, triggered a thought in my mind, and that is, but part of stability also, is it not, when it comes to the GM and the head coach? Because you look at other teams around the league, you don't have stability, and they've interchanged coaches and quarterbacks and GMs. And I know a lot of people, they're frustrated with Howie, they're frustrated with Doug, they're frustrated with Wentz, but you need to at least have stability at one of the positions. So in your mind, is it more valuable to have stability with the quarterback or the head coach moving forward?
Man, that's a tough question to answer. I think the most important thing that a franchise needs to be successful for the long term is it's not singling out any one specific entity like quarterback, coach, GM, owner. I think the most important thing is that your quarterback, your coach, well, I'd say this, that your owner, your GM, and your head coach to an extent, especially if you want long-term success, are all on the same page, that everybody's interests are only about what makes the team best, what's good for the team. And then from there, that kind of matriculates or kind of works its way down to the scouting department, the rest of the coaching staff, the personnel. Teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore and, Kansas City right now for the last 7 or 8 years with Andy and Brett Veach there, Seattle, they're able to kind of turn even change a little bit. They don't change their identity, but they go from, say, Alex Smith to Pat Mahomes, or in Seattle, you go from being the Legion of Boom to now more of a Russell Wilson operation. And then, of course, in Baltimore, you went from, your Joe Flacco's to your Lamar Jackson, because everything works correctly on top. Everybody's in agreement. Everybody knows what the identity is. When you go out and look for football players, you have the same concept year after year after year. You don't change that year after year after year. And I don't think the Eagles have always had that continuity and cohesion from the top. So therefore, it can't really be manifested even in the middle levels when you talk about certain players and the product you're putting out on the field. So without trying to single out one more than the other as far as quarterback and coach, I just think franchise cohesion and symmetry is the most important thing you can have to try to get long-term success. It doesn't mean you're going to win 5 Super Bowls. Obviously you need talent and you need a little luck and things like that. But if you want to consistently, you don't want to be the team that has a nice little run like the Eagles have had and then completely bottom out, right? That's a sign where things start to come apart at the seams and you have reports of this guy not being happy and this guy. The Eagles have kind of always had that around them, Josh, for a long time. And I just think that, your Christmas wish list for the Eagles would be just a franchise that pulls in the same direction.
Well, Josh mentioned Howie Roseman. What are you hearing about the John Dorsey story, his role, anything else tied with his name being here in the Eagles organization now?
Yeah, so John Dorsey has been involved with the club for quite a while. Meaning like more than just the last month or two. I believe it was shortly after the draft that they at least had some conversations, and he started to become in an advisory role and a scouting role for the team. So he's been here throughout, for quite a while, a couple months. And, I can't tell you what kind of impact he's had on any single one decision. I think that his strength in the past has been in drafting. And I know that sounds great for, the Eagles right now because they feel like the Eagles need help in drafting. But I feel like it's the same kind of conversation that you'll have year after year after year. The guy who pulls the trigger on draft picks is Howie Roseman. So not John Dorsey, not Andy Weidel, who's, supposed to be number 2 to Howie Roseman. And it wasn't Joe Douglas when Joe Douglas was with the Eagles. It was Howie Roseman who makes the pick. And so if that doesn't change, I really don't see the scouting philosophy or the personnel picking philosophy, drafting philosophy really changing because Howie will make the pick.
The Eagles have a history, though, in recent years, right? They brought in Tom Donahue a couple of years ago. Now they're bringing in Dorsey. I know that, when they brought in Andrew Berry, you and Adam talked about on the Inside the Birds podcast that, he was kind of like there as a stepping stone to his next job, and now he's the GM in Cleveland. So this isn't new for them to bring in different people into the organization. I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's actually a positive in Howard Roseman's column that he's willing to bring in these well-thought-of people like Dorsey and Donahoe in here to see what they think.
Yeah, I mean, some of the guys you're mentioning are all brought in for different reasons. Tom Donahoe is like the advisor because he used to be a GM, so he's not just draft related, right? He's how you operate your franchise, and he's been with the team. He's a tangible part of the team. He's our front office, I should say. So he's around, he's there, and he's been for quite a while. And I believe he came on after they lost Ryan Grigson to Indianapolis. I want to say, I could be wrong about that. I forget how long Tom's been with the team, or maybe it was when Howie got his power restored. But yeah, he's been with the team for a while. Andrew Berry was brought in, by my understanding, to really become the lead on their analytics department and to help out in of course every area of the front office. But really, I was told he was to preside over the analytics department and marry that with the rest of what they do. I don't think John Dorsey per se has kind of an analytics role involved, more of probably a college and pro scouting role. I think that you can. I'm not trying to rip you here, Josh. I totally understand what you're saying. You can talk yourself into anything being a good idea, but you can also talk yourself into anything being not such a great idea. So you can say, hey, look, it's really good to have a guy as experienced as John Dorsey as part of the scouting staff. Sure. But you could also look at the other way and say, wait a minute, you've got like 3 directors of college scouting. You have a director of pro scouting. We talk about the offense already with all these coaches who are brought in, and it's like, how many voices do you need before it becomes a little bit of a whose voice matters more? And you can make that argument where you bring in John Dorsey. Whose spot was he replacing? They didn't necessarily lose somebody that they needed him. So does that create what I was talking about again, about having everybody on the same page? Does that create a situation where you've got John Dorsey having a louder voice and other guys who are already in place? And I don't know how it works. I'm not trying to tell people it's good or bad. I really don't know what to make of it. I think at the end of the day, it's still Howie Roseman that makes the pick. I mean, they did this. You're right. They also did this with Scott McLuhan a year or two ago, where he was brought in as a scouting advisor to or they subscribed to his scouting service as it is. So it always I look at it as always a little strange, Josh, that when you have as big of a personnel staff as the Eagles do, that you continuously look to outside sources to add to it. Is that something that you see other organizations that are really firm in their process do? I don't know. I really don't. Maybe some do, some don't. I almost don't put a value judgment on it, but I do. As much as you might look at it and say it's a good thing, I also look at it and wonder and question whether it is a good thing.
By the way, just for your own sanity, Tom Donahoe was named Senior Director of Player Personnel during the press conference on December 30th, 2015, when Jeffrey Lurie announced the firing of Chip Kelly and the restructuring of the front office with Howie Roseman. So
So Ed Manowitz was gone and Chip Kelly were gone, and then Howie was told he had to really, hire a GM. But until that, they had brought in Tom Donahoe because they valued his. I think they had a prior relationship, Howie and Tom, and he valued him as an advisor.
Moshe, yesterday we heard that Deshaun Jackson's 21-day window was activated. Should we expect to see him soon, let's say Sunday?
I feel like the perfect ending of this year, right, would be for the Eagles and Washington to play in the final week of the season, and Jalen Hurts on his first drop back in 12 personnel, his only 2 receivers are Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. That would be like 2020 for the Eagles in a nutshell. I really don't see a reason to have to play Deshaun, although I've said that about Alshon as well. But I mean, you are seeing development from Jalen Reagor. You are seeing development, at least in one game. You saw Quez Watkins put a nice little spin move and take that to the house on a I guess a kind of a tunnel screen. So if you're looking for speed, you certainly have enough of there between Watkins and Reagor. And, if they want to put Hightower back on the field, they can do that again as well. But, the way that they've made decisions and kind of catered to the veterans, be it Jason Peters and Alshon Jeffrey, it wouldn't surprise me if somehow Deshaun Jackson made his way back onto the football field.
It's just strange, though, because of the fact that I talked with Andrew DeCecco about this yesterday here on 97.3 ESPN about Alshon Jeffrey had 63% of the wide receiver snaps on Sunday. 63%. Meanwhile, Ward was 53. Watkins was 34. Fulgham was 31. It's almost like this team is, it doesn't matter about the development of the young receivers. It doesn't matter that Greg Ward had 2 touchdowns and that Watkins had that big play. It's, oh, they're healthy. Let's put them back on the field because they're Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, it seems like that. Like I said, they've capitulated to veterans. But I also, look, I know that they're not thrilled with the recent weeks of Hightower and Fulgham, right? I mean, Fulgham made some catches there at the end of the game, but the only reason he was in was because Rager was sidelined with an ankle, which is fine, by the way. He's fine. He should be good to play on Sunday. But there's something going on with Fulgham and Hightower where they just haven't done enough to be able to earn their coach's trust anymore to put him out on the field, and they have to sit there and watch as the old guard able to be doing more. Fulgham was unbelievable for a 4-week stretch, and then the offense went in the tank. I know that the coaches clearly aren't thrilled with Hightower and Fulgham over the last few weeks, and exactly specifically what, I'm not sure, but it's clear that they're playing the veterans because they want Fulgham and Hightower specifically, I guess, to watch and perform better so that they can get on the field. I thought the body language, at least from Fulgham, when the offense really started to tank there and he started to become lost, you could see he was a little frustrated. So I think the coaches really want to see a little bit more out of these guys Monday through Friday before they trust them to get them back on the field.
How do you assess the defense's performance? They had 3 turnovers. They allowed 33 points, although the block punt played a role. But they put the offense in good position when it came to some short field as well. So how do you look at this defense, knowing, too, that they were very limited in resources?
Yeah, you make a fair point. I mean, the Cardinals scored 33 points, but really offensively they scored 31 because there was the intentional grounding safety. And then, as you mentioned, the block punt, basically, not that you have to give up a touchdown every time you have a turnover, but that was a difficult situation. So if you want to take those 7 points and then the 9 points away and say really they gave up about 24 points on the road against an Arizona team that has a lot of weapons when they're banged up, that's not bad. It really isn't. And guys, I thought fought hard. I mean, Alex Singleton continues to play well. I no longer kind of mockingly refer to him as a third linebacker or a starting linebacker only on the Eagles. I think on some other teams he'd be able to at least have a role. I mean, he shows you he's got good energy. He's good nose for the run. He's working on his coverage. It's never going to be great, I don't think, but he's certainly been a big time upgrade over Nate Gary. And it's certainly fair to question everybody involved. Ken Flajole, Jim Schwartz, Doug Peterson, all the coaches on why Nate Gary had to get exposed for about 5 or 6 weeks there before Alex Singleton got more time. And I also thought that the kid Michael Jacquet, yeah, he gave up plays, but he was there fighting and competitive. I mean, how many times have we seen the ball get thrown over a cornerback's head over the last 2 years and a wide receiver score a touchdown? And not until like the guy's done doing his dance do you see the Eagles corner like finally get into the end zone because he was beaten by 30 yards. That was not the case against Arizona. I mean, they made plays, but they had to work for the plays that they made. So I thought Epps, he had the interception, but he also had a breakup. I mean, these guys fight pretty hard for and put it all out there. And nobody made such egregious mistakes that you're like, this guy has to be off the team tomorrow. So I was actually fairly impressed with impressed given the circumstances for the back end. And I thought the front four did a good job of moving Kyler Murray off his spot and getting him uncomfortable.
He's Geoff Mosher. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast. New episode dropping tomorrow morning. Geoff Mosher, Adam Kaplan with all the latest insights on the Eagles-Cardinals game as they start looking as well ahead to the next game versus the Cowboys. And the next time you hear Geoff Mosher here on 97.3 ESPN is a part of the Sports Bash Christmas special that'll air on Christmas Day. And as all guests, Geoff appeared on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline. Make sure you follow him on Twitter for all your Eagles and NFL news at Geoff Mosher NFL. Geoff, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you.
Merry Christmas, fellas. Thanks very much.
Merry Christmas, Geoff. Obviously, Christmas this Friday.
Yes. Crazy, isn't it? Just comes and goes.
Where did time go?
I don't know.
I feel like this month has just flown by. And this game on TV is ridiculous. 19-0 Another game I have no money invested in that I'm just complaining about. Football at 4 being brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now and they'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com to win real money with their sportsbook along with casino games from the comfort of your home. Must be 21 or to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN alongside Hunter Brody here in the Matt Black Kia Studios. 5 o'clock hour Sports Bash being brought to you by Extreme Air Duct Cleaning. Do you really know if the air in your home is clean as the weather gets colder and more time spent indoors? It's important to improve your indoor air quality and Extreme Air Duct Cleaning throughout all of South Jersey. They offer air duct cleaning, air purification systems, dryer vent cleaning, and furnace cleaning. Breathe easy knowing you have fresh air in your home. Schedule a cleaning with Extreme Air Duct Cleaning today. Visit them online at extremeairductcleaning.com. As I've said before, if you are a person who has to clean the dryer vent under your house, I think you would rather have someone do it for you.
I would agree.
I remember I used to have to do it all the time when I lived in Sea Isle when I was younger. And it was horrible, especially in the summer and winter. Because if it's extremely hot or extremely cold outside and you're crawling under your house, the dryer filter under the house, when the dryer is located in the middle of the house, it stinks. It's no fun. Let Extreme Air Duct Cleaning do that for you. 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text. Dan from EHT is not making any sense here because he's saying Die Hard is the best Christmas music, not a Christmas movie. Come on.
Well, I think yesterday Gil was bringing up that it is a Christmas movie. So maybe he's going off of some things that were said yesterday on the show.
Maybe. Look, I'm not one of those people who's against Die Hard being a Christmas movie.
I think it is.
Because to me, a Christmas movie is a movie set around Christmas.
Yes.
So if we're going to argue if Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not, that's my position. If you say it's not, I don't really care. You know why? Because there are much bigger things to worry about in life than if Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
What a responsible way to answer that.
Because here's the problem. If you want to go down the road of what is or isn't a Christmas movie, we're going to have to take a lot of movies off the list. Let's be realistic. There's a lot of movies that qualify as Christmas movies that are not. And there are movies that are not Christmas movies that you could rationally argue maybe they are. Like, for example, is Jingle All the Way really a Christmas movie, or does it just happen to be around Christmas?
I understand what you're saying. That's why I think that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It falls around the category of this is Christmas time. It's in the movie. It's a Christmas movie.
Tom from the Villa says 2 questions. Well, 2 comments. Number 1, he says, would you consider Gremlins a Christmas movie?
Would you?
Probably not. But
yeah, I don't know.
I don't feel like I ever.
Once again, I'm not the movie expert, so you don't want to go by me. But if you ask me personally, I would probably lean towards no.
I mean, I would go no, but then again, I wasn't really a fan of the movie Gremlins. It didn't really fit into like my criteria of stuff I liked over the years. Like, I know it's kind of a cult classic, honestly. I guess it. I mean, there's Christmas gifts and giving going on in the movie. I feel like that's where you're really like stretching. You know what I mean? I think Gremlins is a stretch. But Tom's other point is for you, Hunter.
Okay.
He says, I wouldn't sweat the blanket, Hunter. It will become a funny conversation topic with guests, and you will realize it's not a big deal. I've been there, says Tom in the Village.
Okay, so Tom has experienced the same situation as me. Yeah, I hope this turns into a funny story at one point. Sort of like when we had Christmas dinner a few years back, the glass on top of the fish shattered on top of the stove, and there was all glass inside the fish. At that point, we were all pissed and frustrated. Now we laugh. Remember when the glass was in the fish? So maybe it's one of those stories down the road.
Another texter said earlier in the show, he says, what one sports wish do you guys want the most for Christmas? He says, my wish is that Aqib Talib analyzes every game on TV, every game, every time I watch Merry Christmas.
Well, I guess we can't say anything like win a championship, right? That would be too simple of an answer.
Well, that was Billy Schweim's criteria over the weekend on Saturday. The whole thing was he says anything that's not a simple, he wanted a detailed answer.
All right. My wish, Ben Simmons to legitimately be willing to shoot basketballs.
Okay.
Because that changes what Ben Simmons can be. I mean, he excels in a lot of areas. He has one big hole. So you know what? I think I would go with Ben Simmons being willing to take that next step in his game when it comes to shooting. I'm not saying instantly shoot 40% from three because that's not a reality. But if I could wish for him to take that next step where we are at least satisfied with the growth in his jumper, that's what I would take. How about you?
So I'm going to repeat what I said on Billy's show on Saturday. Okay? My wish is that this pandemic is over.
So much better than mine.
So
much better than mine.
Because I'm so tired of seeing Michelle Tavoya interview somebody from like 200 feet away. I'm so tired of people who both tested negative in the same room and they can't even be close to each other. I'm tired of seeing people argue about what sport is handling the pandemic better. I'm tired of seeing people arguing about false positives. I'm tired of all of this stuff. I just want things to be back to normal. I want my sports to be normal. It's not even that I even care that fans are not in the stands. I just want fans to have the option of being back in the stands, like the Warriors are doing. The Warriors are allowing their fans to come back because they're going to test everybody before they come in the building, right? So to me, I just want be afforded the opportunity of normalcy. That's what I want for Christmas.
That's not a bad ask. I'm a little disappointed that I go jump shot and you go fixing the world. Makes me feel real low. I'm not thinking about the other people.
Yeah, well, again, there's
selfish me.
Well, again, there's a reason why I am what I am, and you're not me because I overthink things, and you're not naturally doing that.
Well, I did today with the Christmas gift,
well, then
but I digress.
But you learn from your mistakes, right?
That's right.
By the way, Pete Thompson, who was just on the last segment, he received an email from Adam Silver that he forwarded to us. Now, this looks like one of those generic emails generated by the NBA.
Wait, you're telling me that Adam Silver doesn't normally just email Pete Thompson on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock?
No. He says, Dear Peter, tonight we are beginning the 2021 NBA season with two compelling matchups on TNT as part of opening week. We'll continue our annual Christmas Day tradition with 5 terrific games on ESPN and ABC. While the pandemic has dramatically impacted our daily lives, we hope this season can provide a small sense of normalcy in the days and weeks ahead. You can expect to see the same level of competition and drama on a nightly basis that have long defined the NBA. Thank you for being part of another NBA season. Stay safe and happy holidays. Sincerely, Adam Silver. And Pete Thompson says, I guess I should watch now because I got this email.
I'm going to be honest with you. I am stoked to go home and watch this game tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm actually very, very excited to watch basketball. And a lot of it has to do with Kevin Durant. I am thrilled to see him out there on the court again. What does he have? I
told you, I'm intrigued. I want to know what this experiment looks like. And by the way, on the other side of the court, no Draymond tonight. Steph's going to be out there with no Clay. It's going to be him, James Wiseman, the rookie.
He's starting, I believe. I saw someone tweet he was starting.
Andrew Wiggins is still there.
Which is funny.
Remember they acquired Kelly Oubre.
Yep.
So what is that team going to look like too? I have no idea. But I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Remember we thought, and obviously injuries play a big role in this, but we just thought that window for the Warriors was going to last longer than it did. It seems like it might almost be shut. You don't know what Clay's going to... I mean, look, you go through just a standard leg injury that he did, and now you add, and I believe it was the other leg that had the Achilles.
It's the other leg, yes.
And now you add that to the mix. Are the Warriors ever going to be the Warriors again to that level? I would probably argue no.
Probably not, but I think that they have a chance to get back into the contention conversation if Clay can get healthy again. And I think they need one more piece.
Oh, for sure they do.
I feel like Oubre and Wiggins right now are like the bridge to the next step, whoever that next step is. And I think that eventually the Warriors are going to find a way to get another star player in there who's not Wiggins or Oubre.
Well, what if it's Wiseman?
Well, look, I don't know what Wiseman's going to be yet. I've heard everything from people saying that he can be the next Ben Wallace, saying he can be Chris Bosh. Like, if he's Chris Bosh, then that's your big three, right? But if he's Ben Wallace, then you need another guy.
Ben Wallace won a title.
No, I mean like offensively, you need another guy.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
You need another offensive weapon. Because Ben Wallace, remember, he was he didn't score any points on that team. It was Chauncey Billups, it was Rip Hamilton, it was Rasheed Wallace. You had 3 bona fide all-stars on that team.
What a team that was. The 04 Pistons.
By the way, people forget they almost won 2 titles because they took the Spurs to 7 games, and then Manu and Tony Parker had to come up huge in that Game 7.
You know what I love about that team? The opening to their home games and their on-court announcer for their intros. I can go back and listen to the intros of the 04 team coming out from the tunnel with the flames coming out. Ben Wallace. I love it. It's just fantastic. Nothing better than a packed barn, 20,000 playoff atmosphere, and the crowd going crazy.
You'll get that this time next year.
You're right. That's why I've been going back and watching a lot of these older games. I miss that
That's
energy.
why you're just ridiculous.
How is that ridiculous?
That's too much.
Why? I'm not watching it over other games on TV at that time. It's more late night, midnight. I'm done watching SVP for the night. Like, I'm going to go and watch an older game. I'm not going to watch it over something that's legitimately on.
Well, you should be watching old UFC fights.
I have my circle. Right now, I'm stuck in Curb. So I went through a bunch of old games. Now I'm in this Curb Your Enthusiasm mode for the 10,000th time. I just go in this one big circle of what I'm grinding after these games at night.
By the way, you have a fan here. Rich in the Villa says, Broads is the best personality the station has had in a long time.
Well, thank you, Rich, but I think we're all fantastic in our own way.
Are we?
Yes. Josh, you do a great job. Gil does a phenomenal job. I think we all work hard here.
Try to say that Gil does a better job than me?
No, I think we all do great jobs. Why? Did I use a word that was different?
Well, you used phenomenal for Gil and you used great for me.
Well, I just wanted to switch it up. So, that was not a knock on you at all, Joe. Without you, this station doesn't run. So let's be realistic here.
Just try to figure out my place in this world, man.
Your place is right here.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for the phenomenal Mike Gill
on
97.3 ESPN. We'll wrap up the show coming up the other side. You want to get your text in, 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text word. Place your legal sports bets at PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now and then match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. All right, let's wrap up the show. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill. This is the final 5 o'clock hour before Christmas.
How about the one guy who got mad at you for saying the way you phrase that, filling in for Mike Gill, as if you're what? Remember someone kind of came after you a little bit?
So what happened is when you weren't here on Thursday, what I typically was saying with Deshaun when he was on, I would say Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill along with Deshaun Hendricks filling in for Hunter Brody. That's what I typically would say. But then if I'm just talking about myself only, I say Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash. And apparently, I guess he didn't hear me mention that you would, because I mentioned multiple times on Thursday, Mike and Hunter will be back in on Friday for a full show. Hunter has the day off. I would mention your name throughout the 4 hours. But apparently in his world, I ignored you.
Yeah,
altogether.
when you say you're filling in for Mike Gill, I mean, you are taking his spot. So I see nothing wrong with the way that you announced it.
Well, in the literal assessment of life, which I do a lot, I am literally sitting in Mike Gill's seat.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Speaking of seats, maybe you got the hot seat going. Maybe you're trying to think of a last-minute gift. Maybe you're someone who has your goals for 2021. Maybe you're someone who says COVID-19 is maybe a little more literal than just a number. Well, someone can help you with all of those things at weightliftinghq.com. Whether you're trying to get a gift for someone you care about, or you're trying to gift yourself, or maybe you want the gift of better health. Maybe you're someone who wants to have a whole at-home workout routine and program. Weightliftinghq.com is here for you. Let me tell you, they are located right here in South Jersey, and I've been very impressed with their full operation online and how they cater to people who, no matter what their goal is, they have the weightlifting and fitness equipment for you. They deliver it right to your home. They set it up for you. So whether you got bench and squat racks, kettlebells, dumbbells, cardio and fitness machines, they got this really cool row machine. The thing looks like it looks like it belongs in a gym. It doesn't look like it belongs in your house. That's how high quality this stuff is. You can get it at weightliftinghq.com. Incredibly competitive prices. Use code RADIO10 for 10% off your entire order. It's RADIO10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order at weightliftinghq.com.
You got some picks for tonight?
Yeah, I figured I'd give some picks for the week because we're only going to be on an hour tomorrow, you and me, and then we're on for an hour and a half on Thursday, so we may or may not get to some picks this week. I'll start with tonight. I love the Lakers line. It's currently -2.5. I looked at it earlier, it was -3. I think the Lakers are going to come out and smoke the Clippers tonight.
I agree with you completely. I'm all over this Lakers line. I would go the exact same route as you. You mentioned earlier maybe LeBron starts out slow, the team starts out slow.
Game.
No, I
For
think
one game.
Yeah, I'm with you.
This is a statement game. This is the Lakers saying this is our town. It's ring night. They're getting the rings tonight. They're going to have a little extra juice. Dennis Schroeder making his debut. Montrezl Harrell playing his former team. This might be a double-digit win for the Lakers.
Oh, I agree. I looked at that 2.5, and I thought that was a little small. You could maybe question, does that concern you that it's that small? But I don't think it does. It doesn't concern me tonight.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. All right, how about this? I'll go into some player props. Steph Curry, over under 4.5 threes. I like the under here. Steph Curry, over under 4.5. I could see him getting 4, 3. Anything over that, though, I think that's a little absurd.
Well, considering there's no Draymond, there's no Clay, I have no idea what Wiggins is going to give you. I would go over, actually.
You would go over.
I'd go over.
I take my shot, though. Like Steph Curry, I know what he does is pop threes all night long,
Listen,
but
I can
5
see
is an
him-
aggressive amount.
But I can see him going 5 for 18 tonight.
From the three-point line or
Yeah.
from the field goal in
No,
general?
for the three-point line.
You think he's jacking up 18 three-point attempts?
Why not?
There's no way in it. You want to bet me and you on that?
Fine, 5 for 16.
There's no way.
That's 4 per quarter.
He's not jacking
That's
up.
4 threes per quarter.
I don't think he takes 16 three-point attempts tonight.
What do you want to set the over-under on three-point attempts? Like, what's the number that you think he's going to take?
8.
I'll take over 8.
We'll go 8.5.
I'll take over 8.5.
Okay, we'll go 8.5.
You good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right.
All right, we'll do a little lunch. How about that? All right, what do you got?
Well, considering all the things that you owe to do with me already, we got a laundry list because of this darn pandemic. So, tomorrow, I got a college football one for you. Memphis versus Florida Atlantic. I want the over 50. All right? These are two teams that can't stop anybody. And my big policy this year was college football, which, by the way, I'm 58-40 on the year, so not too bad. Give me the over 50. I think this is going to be one of those 30-27 kind of games.
That's a Josh bet for sure.
Memphis can score points. FAU can't stop anybody. So
by the way, I went back to Steph Curry's game log just to look at what he's done recently in terms of how many three-point attempts. So I'll just spitball the total amount of three-point attempts in the last handful of games.
Okay.
12, 7, 10, 9, 11. We got, where are we here? 8, 9, 5. So I think we're in the ballpark with what we set.
It's rational.
Yeah, it's rational.
I'm just going over.
Is Kevin Durant's over-under tonight rational? 26.5.
Give me the over.
I like the over.
I think he scores 30-some
First
points.
game back, wants to make a statement.
I think he scores more than Kyrie does.
30-plus is a lock for KD.
I mean, he's a scorer, to say at least, right?
For sure.
By the way, one more for you before we get out of here. Christmas Day. I'll give it to you now. Saints -7. Give me the points. The Vikings have lost 2 straight games. In their last 3 games, they've allowed 27.7 points per game. Give me the plus. Give me the over the 7 for the Saints. How about that? You like that?
Love it.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig. Thanks for listening to Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up tonight, starting at 6:30, coverage of the Boca Raton Bowl. That's a pretty good game with UCF versus BYU. And after that, Lakers-Clippers doubleheader of sports tonight on 97.3 ESPN. We'll be back on tomorrow 2 to 3. Have a great night, everybody.